When a crime lord chooses his housemaid as his wedding date, he doesn't realize he's just painted a target on both their backs. This is the story of Emily Carter, a woman who spent years hiding in plain sight, only to be thrust into a world where one wrong move could cost her everything. What starts as an impossible night in a red dress becomes a deadly game of secrets, power, and survival. Stay with me until the end, hit that like button, and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The kitchen smelled like lemon oil and old wood. Emily Carter stood at the industrial sink, hands submerged in soapy water that had gone lukewarm 20 minutes ago. She scrubbed at a copper pot that didn't need scrubbing, her mind somewhere else entirely, somewhere quiet, somewhere safe, somewhere that wasn't here. The Moretti mansion was never truly silent. Even at odd hours like this, there was always something: footsteps on marble, voices carried through hallways, the distant thrum of expensive cars coming and going. The house breathed wealth and danger in equal measure, and Emily had learned to make herself small within it. She'd been working here for 8 months. 8 months of keeping her head down, her voice soft, her presence forgettable. It was a skill she'd perfected over the past 3 years, the art of being invisible, not because she wanted to be nobody, but because being nobody kept you alive. "Emily." The voice came from behind her, sharp enough to make her flinch. She turned, water dripping from her hands onto the tile floor. Mrs. Castellano stood in the doorway, the head housekeeper, a woman whose entire personality could be summed up in the tight bun she wore and the permanent crease between her eyebrows. "Yes, ma'am?" "Mr. Moretti wants to see you, now." Emily's stomach dropped. "Mr. Moretti?" Did I stutter? Mrs. Castellano's lips pressed into a thin line. "Second floor study. Don't make him wait." She disappeared before Emily could ask why, leaving only the click of her heels against marble. Emily's hands trembled as she dried them on a kitchen towel. Luca Moretti didn't summon housemaids to his study. He barely acknowledged they existed. In 8 months, she'd seen him exactly 4 times, always from a distance, always as a figure moving through rooms she was cleaning, tall, dark-suited, unreachable. She knew what he was. Everyone in the city knew what the Morettis were. You didn't work in their house without understanding that the wealth came from places polite society didn't discuss. But Emily needed the job, needed the anonymity it provided, and she'd convinced herself that if she stayed quiet enough, invisible enough, she'd never be more than a name on a payroll. The walk to the second floor felt like climbing toward an execution. Her reflection caught in one of the many gilded mirrors lining the hallway, mousy brown hair pulled back, plain gray uniform, eyes that had learned not to make contact. She looked exactly like what she was, unremarkable. The study door was slightly ajar. Emily knocked, her knuckles barely making a sound against the heavy wood. "Come in." His voice was different up close, deeper, with an edge that suggested he wasn't used to repeating himself. She stepped inside. The room was all dark wood and leather, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves filled with volumes that probably cost more than she'd make in a year. Luca Moretti stood by the window, hands in his pockets, looking out at the manicured grounds that stretched toward the city skyline. He didn't turn around. "Close the door." Emily did, her heart hammering so hard she was sure he could hear it. Silence stretched between them. She stood there, hands clasped in front of her, waiting for whatever this was. A complaint? Had she broken something? Left something out of place? Her mind raced through every task she'd performed in the past week, searching for the mistake that had gotten her noticed. Finally, he turned. Luca Moretti was younger than she'd thought. Mid-30s, maybe, with the kind of face that would have been handsome if it wasn't so carefully controlled. Dark hair, darker eyes, a jaw that looked like it had been carved from stone. He wore his power like other men wore cologne, subtle but impossible to ignore. He studied her for a long moment, and Emily fought the urge to look away. "Do you know who I am?" he asked. "Yes, sir." "What have you heard?" The question threw her. "Sir?" "The staff talks. I'm sure my name comes up. What do they say?" Emily's mouth went dry. This felt like a test, and she had no idea what the right answer was. "They say you're fair, that you take care of people who work for you." It wasn't entirely true, but it wasn't entirely false either. The staff did say that, along with a dozen other things that were significantly less flattering. Something flickered across his face. Amusement, maybe. Diplomatic. I don't listen to gossip, Mr. Moretti. Everyone listens to gossip. He moved away from the window, crossing to the desk that dominated the center of the room. How long have you worked here? 8 months. You keep to yourself. It wasn't a question, but Emily nodded anyway. No friends among the staff, no phone calls, no visitors. You work, you go to your room, you work again. He leaned against the desk, arms crossed. Why? The air felt too thin. I prefer my privacy. Or you're hiding. The word hit like a physical blow. Emily's fingers dug into her palms, nails biting skin. I'm not hiding from anything. I didn't say you were hiding from something. I said you're hiding. His eyes never left her face. There's a difference. She wanted to run. Every instinct screamed at her to make an excuse and get out of this room, away from this man who saw too much. I need a date, Luca said abruptly. Emily blinked. Excuse me? My brother's getting married. Saturday. Big event. Lots of people. Lots of eyes. He said it like he was discussing a business transaction. I need someone to go with me. I don't understand. It's not complicated. You put on a nice dress, you stand next to me, you smile when appropriate. But Emily gestured at herself, at the uniform, at everything she represented. I'm nobody. Exactly. The word hung in the air between them. Luca pushed off the desk, moving closer, not threatening, but deliberate. Everyone else in my life wants something. They see the name, the money, the connections. They calculate every word, every gesture. It's exhausting. He stopped a few feet away. You're different. You don't know anything about me. I know you've been here 8 months and you've never asked for anything. I know you work twice as hard as anyone else on staff. I know you're terrified right now, but you're still standing here instead of making excuses. His head tilted slightly. And I know you need this job badly enough that you took it without asking questions. Emily's breath caught. He'd noticed. All this time, she thought she'd been invisible, but he'd been watching. Why me? She managed. Because you're honest. He said it like it was the rarest commodity in the world. Because you won't spend the night trying to leverage this into something more. Because I can trust you to walk away when it's over. And if I say no? Luca smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Then you say no. I'm not in the habit of forcing people to do things they don't want to do. He turned back to the window, dismissing her without another word. Emily stood there, mind spinning. This was insane. She should refuse, should keep her head down, should maintain the careful invisibility that had kept her safe. But safety was an illusion. She'd learned that the hard way. And somewhere in the back of her mind, a small voice whispered that maybe, just maybe, hiding in plain sight at a high-profile wedding was better than hiding in a kitchen. Okay, she heard herself say. Luca turned, one eyebrow raised. Okay, I'll go with you. Something shifted in his expression. Surprise, maybe, or satisfaction. Good. Someone will take you shopping tomorrow. Get whatever you need. I can't afford... I'm not asking you to pay for it. He waved a hand dismissively. Consider it part of the arrangement. Emily wanted to argue, but the look on his face said the conversation was over. That's all, Luca said. You can go. She made it halfway to the door before his voice stopped her. Emily. She looked back. Don't make me regret this. The words weren't a threat. They were something worse, a warning that suggested he already knew this decision would cost him something. Emily nodded and left, her hands still shaking. The next 24 hours passed in a blur that felt more like a fever dream than reality. A woman named Sophia arrived at the mansion the following morning, elegant, efficient, and utterly uninterested in Emily's protests. She had measurements, preferences, and a black car waiting outside before Emily had finished her breakfast. The boutique they went to didn't have prices in the window. That should have been Emily's first clue that she was out of her depth. But Sophia swept her inside before she could retreat. What followed was 3 hours of fabric swatches, designer names Emily couldn't pronounce, and mounting anxiety as dresses appeared and disappeared in a parade of silk and sequins. Too sweet, Sophia said, dismissing a pale blue gown. Too obvious for a black sheath. Too trying for something covered in crystals. Emily stood on a platform in her underwear, feeling like a doll being dressed by someone who couldn't quite decide what role she should play. Then Sophia pulled out the red dress. It was the color of wine and danger, cut in clean lines that somehow managed to be both elegant and devastating. No sequins, no crystals, just fabric that looked like it cost more than Emily's car used to. Try this. Emily took it with numb fingers. The material felt like water, sliding against her skin as she stepped into it. Sophia zipped her up without ceremony, then spun her toward the mirror. Emily didn't recognize the woman staring back. The dress transformed her. It skimmed her body in ways that made her look taller, more poised, like someone who belonged in rooms she'd only ever cleaned. The red made her skin look porcelain instead of pale, her eyes wider, her mouth softer. "That's the one," Sophia said with satisfaction. "It's too much. It's perfect." Sophia was already moving, pulling shoes from somewhere, jewelry that sparkled against velvet. "Mr. Moretti has good instincts. He said you'd try to disappear. This makes that impossible." Emily's stomach twisted. "He told you that?" "He told me to find something that would make people look at you instead of through you." Sophia met her eyes in the mirror. He was right. They won't be able to look away. That's what Emily was afraid of. The shoes were torture devices disguised as fashion, heels that added 3 inches and made walking feel like a tightrope act. The jewelry was simple, a thin gold chain, small earrings that caught the light. Sophia insisted on a clutch, lipstick, something for her hair. By the time they left the boutique, Emily had been fitted, packaged, and transformed into someone she didn't recognize. "Hair and makeup Saturday morning," Sophia said as they drove back to the mansion. "A stylist will come to you. Just do what they say and you'll be fine." Emily nodded, not trusting her voice. Back in her small room on the 3rd floor, the staff quarters, she hung the dress in her closet and stared at it like it might bite. The red seemed to glow in the dim light, a warning she should have heeded. She didn't sleep that night. Instead, she sat on her narrow bed, knees pulled to her chest, and tried to convince herself this was survivable. One night, a few hours. Stand, smile, leave. She'd done harder things. The lie didn't stick. Saturday arrived too fast. The stylist knocked on Emily's door at noon, a cheerful woman named Gina who brought enough equipment to stock a salon. She set up in Emily's tiny room without comment, transforming the space into a temporary beauty station. "Mr. Moretti said natural," Gina announced, studying Emily's face like a canvas. "But elevated. We're going for I woke up like this but better." What followed was 90 minutes of hair washing, drying, curling, pinning. Makeup applied and blended with the precision of an artist working on a masterpiece. Emily sat still and tried not to think about what came next. When Gina finally stepped back, Emily barely recognized herself. Her hair fell in soft waves over one shoulder, pinned with something that sparkled but didn't scream. Her makeup was subtle but transformative. Eyes that looked bigger, lips that looked fuller, skin that glowed. She looked expensive, untouchable. "Beautiful," Gina said with satisfaction. "Now get dressed. Car leaves in 20 minutes. Emily's hand shook as she stepped into the red dress for the second time. It fit perfectly, hugging curves she didn't know she had, making her look like someone who belonged in Luca Moretti's world. The woman in the mirror was a stranger. She made her way downstairs carefully, conscious of the heels, the dress, the weight of pretending to be someone she wasn't. The main floor was empty. Most of the staff had been given the evening off for the wedding. Luca waited in the foyer. He wore a tuxedo like he'd been born in one, all sharp lines and controlled power. But when he turned and saw her descending the stairs, something flickered across his face. Surprise, quickly hidden. Emily reached the bottom step and stopped, suddenly hyper-aware of how exposed she felt. "You clean up well," Luca said. It wasn't exactly a compliment, but it wasn't dismissive either. "Thank you," Emily managed. His eyes traveled over her once, professional and assessing. "The dress is perfect. Sophia did well. I feel ridiculous. You look dangerous." He said it casually, like commenting on the weather. "That's the point." Before Emily could ask what he meant, he offered his arm. "Ready?" No, absolutely not. This was a terrible idea, and she should run back upstairs and lock herself in her room and never come out. "Yes," she heard herself say. The car waiting outside was black and sleek, the kind that cost more than most houses. A driver held the door open. Luca guided her inside with a hand on her lower back, barely touching, but she felt it like a brand. The leather seats were impossibly soft. The interior smelled like money. "Where is it?" Emily asked as they pulled away from the mansion. "The Grandview Hotel, downtown." Of course it was. Nothing but the best for the Moretti family. They drove in silence for a while, Emily watching the city slide past the tinted windows. She'd lived here for 3 years, but always on the edges, in the forgotten corners. This route took them through the parts she'd avoided: glass towers, expensive restaurants, streets where people like her didn't belong. "Nervous?" Luca asked. "Terrified," Emily admitted. "Don't be. You're with me. No one will bother you." It should have been reassuring. Instead, it reminded her exactly who she was sitting next to. "Can I ask you something?" she said before she could stop herself. "You can ask." "Why not bring someone from your world? Someone who knows how to do this?" Luca was quiet for a moment, staring out his own window. "Because everyone from my world wants to be seen with me for the wrong reasons. Status, connections, leverage." He glanced at her. "You just want to survive the night. That's refreshingly honest." "I'm not sure honesty is my best quality right now." "No?" His mouth curved slightly. "What would you say is?" "Self-preservation?" He laughed, actually laughed, short and genuine. "Fair enough." The hotel appeared ahead, all lit windows and elegant architecture. A red carpet ran from the entrance to the curb. People in expensive clothes were already arriving. Photographers gathered like wolves. Emily's breathing went shallow. "Hey," Luca's voice cut through her rising panic. "Look at me." She did. "You don't have to talk to anyone. You don't have to explain yourself. You just stay close and let me handle it." His eyes were steady, certain. "I've got you, understand?" Emily nodded, not trusting her voice. The car slowed to a stop. Flashbulbs exploded against the windows. "Time to perform," Luca said quietly. The driver opened the door. Sound rushed in. Voices, camera shutters, the general noise of wealth congregating. Luca stepped out first, buttoning his jacket with practiced ease. Then he turned and offered Emily his hand. She took it. The moment her heels touched the red carpet, every camera swung toward them. Light exploded in her face, voices calling questions she couldn't process. Luca's hand moved to her waist, steady and possessive, guiding her forward. "Mr. Moretti, who's your date?" "Luca, over here." "Is this official?" He ignored them all, moving with the confidence of someone who'd been photographed since birth. Emily tried to match his pace, tried not to trip, tried not to look as overwhelmed as she felt. They made it inside. The lobby of the Grandview was excessive even by wealthy standards. Marble everywhere, chandeliers that probably required their own insurance, flowers arranged in displays that cost more than Emily's monthly salary. And people. So many people. They moved through the crowd like sharks, elegant and predatory, everyone dressed in designer labels and expensive jewelry. Emily recognized faces from magazines, news broadcasts, the kind of people who existed in a different stratosphere. "Luca!" A woman appeared from the crowd. Tall, blonde, beautiful in a way that looked professionally maintained. Her dress was white and cut low enough to make a statement. "Vanessa," Luca said evenly, "I didn't know you were bringing someone." Vanessa's eyes raked over Emily with thinly veiled disdain. "How unexpected." "Vanessa, this is Emily." "Emily. Vanessa Delacroix." Emily recognized the name. Old money, connected to half the city's power players, and very clearly someone who had history with Luca. "Charmed," Vanessa said in a tone that meant the opposite. "And what do you do, Emily?" It was a loaded question. Emily knew what answer Vanessa expected, something impressive, something that justified her presence here. "I work for Mr. Moretti," Emily said simply. Vanessa's smile sharpened. "How lovely. Well, enjoy the wedding." She disappeared back into the crowd, but Emily could feel eyes following them now, whispers rippling outward. "Ex-girlfriend?" Emily asked quietly. "Something like that." Luca guided her toward the ballroom doors. "Ignore her. She's harmless." Emily doubted that, but she didn't argue. The ballroom was stunning, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, tables covered in white linens and flowers, a stage set up for live music. At least 200 people filled the space, all talking, laughing, drinking champagne from flutes that probably cost more than Emily's dress. A receiving line had formed near the entrance where the bride and groom stood. Luca's brother, Marco Moretti, looked like a younger, softer version of Luca. The bride was radiant and white, smiling at each guest like they were the only person in the room. "Come on," Luca said. "Let's get this over with." They joined the line. Emily tried to steady her breathing, tried to prepare for whatever came next. When they reached Marco, his face lit up. "Luca, you made it!" "Wouldn't miss it." The brothers embraced briefly. "Congratulations." "Thank you." Marco turned to Emily, genuine curiosity in his eyes. "And who's this?" "Emily Carter," Luca said before she could introduce herself. "Emily, my brother Marco and his wife, Christina." "It's beautiful," Emily said, gesturing vaguely at the room, the flowers, everything. "Congratulations." Christina beamed. "Thank you. We're so glad you could come, both of you." There was something knowing in her look, like she understood this meant something it probably didn't. They moved past the receiving line, deeper into the crowd. Luca snagged 2 champagne flutes from a passing waiter and handed one to Emily. "Don't drink it," he said quietly. "Just hold it. Gives you something to do with your hands." "You've done this before." "More times than I can count." He scanned the room with the practiced ease of someone cataloging threats. "Stay close. We'll make an appearance, eat dinner, leave before the dancing gets serious." It sounded survivable. For the next hour, Emily existed in a strange bubble of near invisibility. People approached Luca constantly, business associates, family friends, people who wanted to be seen talking to him. He handled each interaction with the same controlled courtesy, never introducing Emily by more than her first name, never explaining her presence. She stood beside him and tried not to feel like an imposter. Dinner was announced. Their table was near the front, family seating. Emily found herself between Luca and an older woman who introduced herself as Aunt Maria and immediately launched into stories about Luca as a child. The food was incredible. 7 courses, each more elaborate than the last. Emily ate mechanically, aware of every movement, every glance, every whisper that might be about her. "You're doing fine," Luca murmured at one point, leaning close enough that only she could hear. "Better than most people I've brought to these things." "I haven't said a word." "Exactly. It's refreshing." The speeches started during dessert. Marco's best man told embarrassing stories. Christina's father welcomed her into the Moretti family with emotion that seemed genuine. Luca gave a toast that was short, sincere, and perfectly calibrated to make everyone smile. Emily watched him and wondered how much of this was performance. After dinner, people began migrating toward the dance floor. The band started playing something slow and romantic. Christina and Marco had their first dance while everyone watched and whispered about how perfect they were together. Emily excused herself to find the restroom. The bathroom was excessive, all marble and gold fixtures, individual lounge areas with mirrors and chairs. She locked herself in the stall and tried to breathe. She'd made it through dinner. The worst was over. Another hour, maybe 2, and she could go home, take off this dress, and forget this night ever happened. The bathroom door opened. Voices filtered in, women talking in that particular tone that meant gossip. "Did you see Luca's date? How could I miss her? That dress. I heard she works for him, like works for him." "You're kidding, a housemaid?" That's what Vanessa said. "Can you imagine?" Emily froze. "I mean, she's pretty enough if you're into that whole helpless mouse thing. Luca Moretti could have anyone. Why bring her?" "Maybe that's exactly why. A statement. Or a joke." They laughed, the sound echoing off marble. Emily stayed in the stall until they left, her hands clenched so tight her nails cut crescents into her palms. She'd been naive to think this would work. Naive to think she could stand next to Luca Moretti, and people would see anything other than exactly what she was, someone who didn't belong. When she finally emerged, she splashed cold water on her face carefully, trying not to ruin Gina's work. Her reflection stared back, still beautiful, still expensive looking, still wrong. She made her way back to the ballroom, scanning for Luca. He stood near the windows with a group of men in suits, deep in conversation that looked more like business than celebration. Emily started toward him, navigating the edges of the dance floor. That's when she saw him. The man stood near the bar, half turned away, but Emily would have recognized that profile anywhere. Thin face, sharp nose, eyes like chips of ice. Victor Hale. Time stopped. Her breath caught. Her vision tunneled. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but her legs wouldn't move. It couldn't be him. Not here. Not now. But it was. Victor turned slightly, scanning the room, and Emily spun away before he could see her face. She pressed herself against a column, heart hammering so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. This wasn't possible. Victor Hale didn't move in these circles. He was a mid-level criminal, muscle for hire, not someone who got invited to Moretti weddings. Unless he was here for the same reason everyone else was, because the Morettis were connected to everything ugly in this city. Emily tried to think through her panic. She needed to leave, now, before Victor saw her, before he recognized her, before everything she'd run from caught up. She pushed off the column and nearly collided with Luca. "There you are," he said. "I was about to send a search party. I need to leave." The words came out strangled. Luca's expression shifted immediately. "What happened?" "Nothing. I'm not feeling well. I should go." His eyes narrowed, reading something in her face. "You're lying." "Please." Emily hated how desperate she sounded. "Please, I just need to leave." Luca's hand closed around her arm, not hard, but firm enough to stop her from bolting. "Tell me what's wrong." "I can't." "Emily, there's someone here." The confession burst out before she could stop it. "Someone I can't see." "Who?" She shook her head, not trusting herself to say the name out loud. Luca's jaw tightened. He scanned the room with new intensity, no longer casual. "Show me." "What?" "Show me who you're afraid of." Emily's hands shook. This was a mistake. She should have kept her mouth shut, should have made an excuse and disappeared. But Luca was looking at her like he could see through every defense she'd built, and some part of her was tired of running alone. She turned slightly, using Luca's body as a shield, and looked back toward the bar. Victor was still there, now talking to another man Emily didn't recognize. "The one in the gray suit," she whispered. "By the bar." Luca followed her gaze. Something dangerous crossed his face. Recognition, maybe, or calculation. "Victor Hale," he said quietly. Emily's stomach dropped. "You know him?" "He does occasional work for some people I know, low-level stuff." Luca looked back at her. "Why are you afraid of him?" Because 3 years ago, she'd seen Victor Hale beat a man to death in an alley behind a bar where she used to waitress. Because she'd been taking out trash and heard the sounds, and looked when she shouldn't have. Because Victor had seen her seeing him, and she'd run. Because she'd been running ever since. "It's complicated," Emily managed. "Then uncomplicate it. Not here. Not now." Luca studied her for a long moment, then seemed to make a decision. "Okay, we're leaving." Relief flooded through her. "Thank you." He kept his hand on her arm as they moved through the crowd, positioning himself between her and the bar where Victor stood. Emily kept her head down, focusing on not tripping in the ridiculous heels. They were almost to the exit when someone called Luca's name. He stopped. Emily's blood froze. "Moretti?" Victor Hale said, approaching with the easy confidence of someone who didn't know he was prey. "Didn't expect to see you here." "A family obligation?" Luca said evenly. "You?" "Guest of a guest, hell of a party." Victor's eyes slid past Luca to Emily, casual curiosity. "And who's this?" Time crystallized. Emily felt Victor's gaze move over her face, saw the exact moment recognition sparked in his eyes. His expression didn't change, but something shifted. A predator recognizing escaped prey. "Just a friend," Luca said before Emily could speak. "We were leaving." "Shame. Night's just getting started." Victor smiled, and it was all teeth. "Maybe we'll run into each other again." It wasn't a question. It was a promise. Luca guided Emily away without another word. They made it outside, into the cool night air, the red carpet now empty of cameras. Emily couldn't breathe. The car appeared. Luca pushed her inside and followed, slamming the door. "Drive," he told the driver. The hotel disappeared behind them. Emily pressed her hands against her face, trying to stop shaking. This was over. She was done. Victor had seen her, recognized her, and now everything she'd built in 3 years was about to come crashing down. "Start talking," Luca said quietly. Emily lowered her hands. "I can't." "Yes, you can, because Victor Hale just looked at you like he'd found something valuable, and I need to know why. This was a mistake, all of it." "Emily," his voice cut through her panic. "Whatever this is, I can help, but not if you won't tell me what's happening." She looked at him. This man she barely knew, who'd pulled her into his world for reasons she still didn't understand. Every instinct told her to keep quiet, to protect herself through silence. But silence hadn't saved her yet. "3 years ago," Emily said quietly, "I saw Victor kill someone." Luca went very still. "Explain." "So she did." The words came in broken pieces. The bar where she'd worked, the alley, the sounds that made her look when she shouldn't have, Victor's hands covered in blood, the body that stopped moving. The moment their eyes met and she realized her life had just changed forever. "I ran," Emily said. "Changed my name, moved cities, kept moving. I thought I was safe. I thought he'd forgotten about me." "People like Victor don't forget," Luca said. His voice was different now, harder, calculating. "Who else knows?" "No one. I never told anyone. I just ran." "Did you go to the police?" Emily laughed bitterly. "With what? No evidence? No body? Just my word against his? I would have been dead in a week." Luca was quiet, processing. The city lights slid past the windows as they drove through streets Emily didn't recognize. "I'm sorry," she said finally. "I shouldn't have agreed to this. I put you in a bad position." "You think I'm worried about being in a bad position?" He looked at her like she'd said something absurd. "Emily, you just told me you've been hunted for 3 years. That's the problem we're solving. There's no we. This is my mess. It became my mess the moment I brought you to that wedding." His jaw tightened. "Victor seeing you there, with me, that changes things." Emily's stomach sank. "What do you mean?" "It means he'll think you're under my protection, which makes you valuable. I should leave, tonight. I'll disappear again. You've been disappearing for 3 years. How's that working out?" The truth of it hit hard. She'd been surviving, not living. Moving from city to city, job to job, always looking over her shoulder, never staying long enough to be anything other than temporary. "What am I supposed to do?" Emily asked quietly. Luca turned to look at her fully. "You're going to tell me everything you remember about that night, every detail. Then we're going to figure out how to make this problem disappear. You can't just make Victor Hale disappear. You'd be surprised what I can do." The car pulled up to the mansion. Luca got out first and offered his hand. Emily took it, her legs unsteady in the heels that had seemed so important hours ago. Inside, the house was quiet. Most of the staff gone, just empty rooms and shadows. "My office," Luca said. "We need to talk properly." Emily followed him through the house, her mind spinning. This was spiraling out of control. She should have known better than to think one night could be contained. The office was different at night, darker, more intimate. Luca poured 2 glasses of something expensive and handed one to Emily. She took it but didn't drink. "Start from the beginning," he said. "The bar. What was it called?" "Riley's in Oakmont." "And you were working there when?" 4 years ago. It was a dive, cash under the table, no questions asked." "When did you see Victor?" Emily closed her eyes, pulling up memories she'd tried to bury. "March 18th. I remember because it was St. Patrick's weekend and we'd been slammed. I was taking trash out around midnight. The alley was usually empty." "But it wasn't." "No, there were 2 men, Victor and someone else. They were arguing. I heard it before I saw them, shouting. Then sounds like—" She swallowed. "Like hitting. I should have gone back inside, but I looked." "What did you see?" Victor had the other man against the wall. His face was already bloody. He kept asking about money, about who sent him. The man wouldn't answer. Emily's hands tightened around the glass. Then Victor he didn't stop. Even after the man stopped fighting back, even after he went limp. "Did Victor see you?" "Not at first. I started to back away, tried to be quiet, but I knocked over something, a bottle, I think. It made noise. And he saw you. Emily nodded. He looked right at me. And I knew if I didn't run right then, I was dead. So you ran. I didn't even go back for my things. I just ran. Got on a bus that night, didn't look back. Luca was quiet, absorbing all of this. The body. Did they ever find it? I don't know. I never checked. I was too afraid to look. And you've been moving ever since. Every 6 months, new city, new name, new job, always looking over my shoulder. Until you came here. Emily met his eyes. I thought I'd be safe working for you. That you were powerful enough that people like Victor wouldn't touch your household. That was smart. Luca set his glass down. But you should have told me this before. Would you have hired me if you knew? He considered. Probably not. Too complicated. That's why I didn't say anything. Fair enough. He moved to his desk, pulling out a phone. Give me until tomorrow. I need to make some calls, figure out what Victor's connection to tonight was. And then what? Then we deal with it. Emily stood, exhaustion hitting her all at once. I should go. Emily. Luca's voice stopped her at the door. You're not alone in this anymore. Understand? She wanted to believe him, but Emily had been alone for so long she'd forgotten what trust felt like. Thank you, she said quietly. She made it back to her room before the tears came. Not from fear, though that was there, but from something else. Relief, maybe, or the dangerous hope that after 3 years of running, someone was finally standing between her and the monsters. The red dress hung in her closet, a reminder of the night everything changed again. Emily didn't sleep. Instead, she sat by her window and watched the sun rise over the city, wondering if this was the beginning of salvation or the end of everything she'd built. Outside, birds sang like the world was normal. But Emily knew better. The monsters always came back, and Victor Hale had just found her again. Morning came too fast and brought no answers. Emily sat at the small table in her room, staring at cold coffee she'd made an hour ago but couldn't bring herself to drink. The red dress still hung in her closet, like evidence of a crime she'd willingly committed. Her phone, a burner she replaced every few months, sat silent on the table. No messages, no calls. Just the weight of waiting for something terrible to happen. A knock at her door made her jump. It's me, came Luca's voice. Emily opened the door to find him looking like he hadn't slept either. Still in last night's clothes, tie gone, shirt unbuttoned at the collar. He held 2 paper cups of coffee and didn't wait for an invitation before stepping inside. Drink this, he said, handing her one. The other stuff's garbage. Emily took it, grateful. You didn't have to. I called in some favors last night, made inquiries. He leaned against her dresser, the only other piece of furniture in the cramped space. Victor Hale was at the wedding as a +1, guest of Marcus Vento. The name meant nothing to Emily. Who's that? Small-time operator, runs security for some of the lower-tier venues downtown. He's been trying to move up, make connections. Luca's jaw tightened. Using my brother's wedding to network was a bold move. So Victor being there was just coincidence? I don't believe in coincidence. He took a long drink of coffee. But I also don't think he knew you'd be there. His reaction was genuine surprise. Emily's hands wrapped around the warm cup. That doesn't make me feel better. It should. It means he wasn't hunting you specifically. He just got lucky. Luca's eyes met hers. But now that he's seen you with me, that changes his calculations. How? You're no longer just a witness he needs to silence. You're potential leverage against me. He said it matter-of-factly, like discussing stock prices. That makes you more valuable alive than dead. Emily's stomach turned. So I've graduated from victim to hostage. You've graduated from running alone to having someone who can push back. Luca set his cup down. I need you to tell me everything you remember about that night again. Different details this time. The man Victor killed. Did you see his face? Emily closed her eyes, forcing herself back to that alley. Not well. It was dark, and by the time I looked, his face was already bloody. But he was older, maybe 50s, balding. He wore a brown jacket. Build? Average. Not big, not small. Maybe 5'9", 5'10". Accent? Anything distinctive when he spoke? He didn't say much, just kept saying, I don't know, over and over. His voice was rough, like a smoker. Luca pulled out his phone, scrolling through something. Did he say anything else? Any names? Emily searched her memory. Victor kept asking about someone named Santos. Where's Santos? Who sent Santos? The man kept saying he didn't know. Santos. Luca's expression darkened. That's helpful. You know the name? I know a lot of names. He pocketed the phone. I'm going to make some calls. In the meantime, you stay here. Don't leave the mansion. I have work. You're on paid leave. Mrs. Castellano's been informed. Emily bristled. You can't just, I can, and I did. His tone left no room for argument. This isn't negotiable. Until I know what Victor's planning, you don't leave my sight or these walls. So I'm a prisoner now? You're protected. There's a difference. Is there? Emily stood, anger cutting through fear. Because from where I'm standing, I've just traded one cage for another. Luca's eyes narrowed. You think I'm the same as the people hunting you? I think powerful men all play by the same rules. Control, manipulation, force when necessary. You don't know anything about me. And you don't know anything about what it's like to spend 3 years looking over your shoulder, never sleeping through the night, never trusting anyone. Emily's voice cracked despite herself. I didn't ask for your protection. No, you just accepted my invitation to a wedding that put you directly in front of the man you've been hiding from. Luca stepped closer, not threatening, but intense. Like it or not, we're in this together now. So you can either work with me, or you can run again and hope you make it another 3 years before he finds you somewhere I can't help. The truth of it settled like lead in Emily's chest. She wanted to fight, wanted to maintain the independence that had kept her alive, but she was tired. So tired of running. What do you want from me? She asked quietly. Right now, stay put. Let me handle this. And then? Then we make sure Victor Hale becomes someone else's problem. He left before Emily could ask what that meant. The day crawled by with excruciating slowness. Emily tried to read, tried to sleep, tried to do anything but stare at the walls of her room. By evening, she was climbing out of her skin with restless energy. She ventured downstairs, drawn by the smell of cooking. The kitchen was empty except for Maria, one of the other housemaids, who looked startled to see her. Emily, I thought you were sick. Just needed some air. Emily grabbed a glass of water. Quiet today. Mr. Moretti gave most of us the day off. Some big meeting or something. Maria lowered her voice conspiratorially. I heard you went to the wedding with him. Emily's hand tightened on the glass. Just as a favor. That's not what people are saying. What are people saying? Maria hesitated, then shrugged. That you're together. That it's serious. It's not. I was just filling a slot. Sure. Maria didn't sound convinced. Well, be careful. The last woman he dated ended up in the hospital. Emily's blood chilled. What? Nothing proven. But Vanessa Delacroix had a bad car accident about 6 months after they broke up. Some people think it wasn't an accident. Maria grabbed her bag. I'm heading out. You sure you're okay? Fine, Emily lied. Alone in the kitchen, she tried to process what Maria had said. Luca had claimed he could protect her, but what if he was just as dangerous as Victor? What if she'd traded one threat for another? Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Emily stared at it, heart pounding. She'd been so careful with this phone. Only a handful of people had the number, and none of them would call from a blocked ID. She answered without speaking. Emily Carter. Victor Hale's voice was smooth as oil. Or should I say Emily Brooks? Or was it Emily Winters? You've had so many names. Emily's legs went weak. She grabbed the counter for support. Nothing to say? Victor continued. That's all right. I'll do the talking. You and I need to have a conversation about what you saw, about what you've been telling people. I haven't told anyone anything. You told Luca Moretti. I don't know what you're talking about, Victor laughed. Don't insult my intelligence. You show up on his arm looking terrified the moment you see me, then he starts making calls about me? You told him, which means I have a problem. I didn't. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to meet me, tonight, alone. We're going to talk about our mutual situation and come to an understanding. I'm not meeting you anywhere. Then I'm going to make sure everyone knows you're a witness to a murder. Think Moretti will protect you when that brings heat down on his operation? Think he'll risk exposure for a housemaid he's known for 8 months? Emily's mind raced. Where? Smart girl, Pier 49, midnight. Come alone or this gets ugly for everyone. The line went dead. Emily stood frozen in the kitchen, phone clutched in her shaking hand. This was it. The moment she'd been dreading for 3 years. Victor had found her, and now he wanted to clean up loose ends. She could run, pack a bag right now and disappear before midnight, change her name again, find a new city, start over. But she was so tired of starting over. The alternative was telling Luca, let him handle it. But Victor was right. Would Luca really risk his operation for her? Or would he decide she was more trouble than she was worth and cut her loose? Emily looked at the clock. 7 hours until midnight. She went back to her room and pulled out the small backpack she kept packed for emergencies. Clothes, cash, documents with 3 different names. The survival kit that had gotten her through 3 years of running. Then she sat on her bed and tried to decide who she trusted less. The man who'd killed someone in front of her, or the man who'd pulled her into his world for reasons she still didn't understand. The knock on her door 2 hours later made the decision for her. It's open, Emily called. Luca walked in, looking grimmer than she'd ever seen him. We have a problem. I know. Victor called. His expression went dangerous. What did he say? Emily told him about the call, about the meeting demand. She watched Luca's face harden with each word. You're not going, he said flatly. He'll come after you if I don't. He said he'd expose me, bring heat on your operation. Let him try. Luca's voice was ice. I've dealt with bigger problems than Victor Hale. But, Emily, he cut her off. This is what he does. He threatens, he pressures, he makes you think you have no choice. But you do. You stay here, stay safe, and let me handle this. How are you going to handle it? That's not your concern. It is if it's about me. Emily stood, facing him. I'm not a damsel in a tower. This is my life, my problem. I should have a say in how it's solved. Your say could get you killed. And your say could get you killed protecting me. Why? Why do you even care what happens to me? The question hung between them. Luca was quiet for a long moment, jaw working like he was chewing on words he didn't want to say. Finally, because I brought you into this. Because I asked you to trust me. Because walking away now would make me exactly what you think I am. And what do I think you are? Another powerful man who uses people and throws them away when they become inconvenient. The accuracy of it stung. Emily looked away. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. He moved closer, and Emily was struck by how tired he looked. I'm not going to lie to you. The world I operate in isn't clean. I've done things you'd probably hate me for, but I keep my word. And I told you I'd handle this. By doing what? Killing him? If necessary. The casualness of it should have terrified her. Instead, Emily felt something else, a dark relief that someone was finally willing to be as ruthless as the threat required. I don't want you to kill anyone because of me, she said quietly. Then what do you want? I want to stop running. I want to sleep through the night. I want to stop being afraid every time someone looks at me too long. Her voice cracked. I want my life back. Okay. Luca said it simply, like it was already decided. Then that's what we'll do. How? You let me go to that meeting. I'll talk to Victor, find out what he really wants. He wants me dead. He wants leverage. There's a difference. Luca pulled out his phone. I'm going to make him an offer. Information for silence. What information? Whatever he thinks you told me about that night. Whatever he's afraid of coming to light. His eyes met hers. You said the man mentioned Santos. That's valuable. Victor will want to know what else you remember. Emily's stomach twisted. You're going to trade information about a murder for my safety? I'm going to trade the possibility of information for your safety. Whether that information actually exists is irrelevant. A cold smile crossed his face. Victor's not the only one who can manipulate a situation. And if it doesn't work, then we move to more permanent solutions. Emily wanted to argue, wanted to find another way that didn't involve Luca putting himself at risk. But she was out of ideas and out of time. What do you need from me? She asked. Stay here. Lock the door. Don't answer calls from numbers you don't recognize. He moved to the door, then paused. And Emily? Whatever happens tonight, you don't run. Promise me. Why does it matter? Because if you run, I can't protect you. And despite what you think, I'm pretty good at that. Emily nodded slowly. Okay, I promise. He left, and Emily was alone with her thoughts and the ticking clock. The hours until midnight stretched like torture. Emily tried to distract herself, reading, pacing, anything to keep from imagining what was happening at Pier 49. But her mind kept circling back to the same questions. What was Luca saying to Victor? What was he offering? What would it cost? At 12:47 a.m., her door opened. Emily jumped up from where she'd been sitting on the bed, heart racing. Luca walked in looking worse than before. Tie completely gone now, shirt torn at the shoulder, a cut above his left eyebrow that was still bleeding slightly. What happened? Emily rushed forward. We talked. He winced as he moved, one hand pressed to his ribs. Victor's not interested in reasonable solutions. You're hurt. I've been worse. But he let Emily guide him to sit on her bed. Do you have a first aid kit? She did, another item in her emergency supplies. Emily pulled it out and started cleaning the cut on his face with shaking hands. Tell me what happened, she said quietly. Luca was silent as she worked. Then, I offered him money to disappear. A lot of money, enough to retire comfortably somewhere far from here. He said no. He said you're worth more than money, that keeping you quiet is worth whatever I'm willing to pay because if you talk, it unravels other things, bigger things. Emily's hand stilled. What things? The man he killed wasn't just some random victim. He was connected to a drug operation Victor was running security for. The man found out Victor was skimming, threatened to report him. Victor killed him to keep it quiet. So this isn't just about me. It never was. You're just the loose end that could tie everything together. Luca grabbed her wrist gently, stopping her ministrations. He wants you handed over. Thinks I'll sacrifice you to avoid problems. Will you? What did you think? Emily searched his face, looking for deception, for the calculation that would tell her she was expendable. But all she saw was determination and something that might have been anger on her behalf. I think you got hurt tonight defending me, she said quietly. I think that's either really stupid or really what? She didn't finish the sentence. Instead, she went back to cleaning his wounds, focusing on the task because it was easier than examining what she was feeling. Victor gave me 48 hours, Luca said. After that, he starts making noise, talking to people who'd be interested in what you know. So what do? We make sure he doesn't get the chance. Emily put down the antiseptic. Luca, you can't just kill him? Watch me. I don't want that on my conscience. It won't be. It'll be on mine. He stood, testing his ribs with a grimace. I've carried worse. Why are you doing this? Emily's voice broke. Why risk everything for someone you barely know? Luca looked at her for a long moment. You really don't see it? See what? He moved closer and Emily's breath caught. They were standing in her tiny room, barely 2 feet apart, and the air felt charged with something dangerous. You're not like the others, Luca said quietly. Everyone in my life wants something from me. Money, power, connections. They smile and scheme and calculate every interaction. But you? You asked for nothing. You were content to clean kitchens and be invisible. That's... He paused, searching for words. That's the most honest thing I've encountered in years. I'm not honest. I'm a liar with 3 fake names who's been running for her life. You're a survivor who did what she had to do. That's different. Emily wanted to step back, to create distance, but she couldn't make herself move. You don't know me. I know enough. You know I saw a murder. That's all. I know you've been alone for 3 years and you're still fighting. I know you said yes to an impossible request because you needed the job more than you needed safety. I know you're terrified right now, but you're still standing here instead of running. His hand came up, fingers brushing her cheek. I know you're stronger than you think. Emily's eyes burned. She couldn't remember the last time someone had looked at her like this, like she was worth protecting, worth risking something for. This is a bad idea, she whispered. Probably. You're going to regret it. Maybe. Victor will come after both of us now. Let him try. The kiss happened before Emily could overthink it, or maybe Luca initiated it, she couldn't tell. All she knew was that one moment they were standing there talking about danger and death, and the next his mouth was on hers, and she was kissing him back like he was oxygen and she'd been drowning. It was desperate and messy and tasted like blood from his split lip, and Emily didn't care. For 3 years she'd been numb, had forced herself not to feel anything, because feeling meant vulnerability, and vulnerability meant death. But this was alive and real and terrifying in ways that had nothing to do with Victor Hale. Luca pulled back first, breathing hard. That was a mistake, Emily finished. I was going to say inevitable. Same thing. Not even close. He stepped back, running a hand through his hair. I should go. Let you sleep. Like that's happening tonight. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. Fair point. He moved to the door but stopped with his hand on the knob. Emily, 48 hours. That's all the time Victor gave me. I need you to trust me for 48 hours. And then? Then this is over, one way or another. He left, and Emily sank onto her bed, fingers pressed to her lips, mind racing. She'd just kissed Luca Moretti, the crime boss, her employer, the man who dragged her into this mess and was now determined to drag her out of it. And the worst part? She wanted to do it again. Emily lay back on her bed and stared at the ceiling, listening to the mansion settle around her. Somewhere in the distance, a door closed. Footsteps on stairs. The ordinary sounds of a house that was anything but ordinary. 2 days. That's all she had to wait. 2 days for Luca to fix a problem that had chased her for 3 years. 2 days to figure out if she was falling for her protector or just transferring her fear into something that felt safer to feel. 2 days until Victor Hale either disappeared or destroyed everything. Emily closed her eyes and tried not to count the hours. Dawn was breaking when she finally fell asleep, and her dreams were full of red dresses and dark alleys and a man with blood on his hands who couldn't decide if he was saving her or condemning them both. Emily woke to someone pounding on her door. She jolted upright, disoriented, sunlight streaming through the window telling her she'd slept later than intended. The pounding continued, insistent. Emily, open up! Mrs. Castellano's voice cut through the fog of sleep. Emily stumbled to the door, still in yesterday's clothes, and opened it to find the head housekeeper looking more agitated than usual. Mr. Moretti needs you downstairs. Now. What's happening? Just go. Mrs. Castellano's eyes darted down the hallway. Something's wrong. Emily's stomach dropped. She grabbed her shoes and followed Mrs. Castellano down to the main floor, where voices echoed from Luca's office. Angry voices. Mrs. Castellano gestured toward the door and disappeared, leaving Emily standing alone in the hallway. She knocked once, softly. Come in. Luca stood behind his desk, phone pressed to his ear, his free hand braced on the polished wood like he was holding himself upright. 2 men Emily didn't recognize occupied the chairs across from him. One older, with gray at his temples, the other younger but harder looking, with scars crossing his knuckles. I'll call you back, Luca said into the phone and hung up. His eyes found Emily. Close the door. She did, suddenly aware of how she must look, wrinkled clothes, hair a mess, sleep still clinging to her face. This is Emily Carter, Luca said to the 2 men. Emily, this is James Reeves and Tommy Marconi. They work for me. James nodded politely. Tommy just stared, evaluating her like merchandise. Victor made his move, Luca said without preamble. Earlier than expected. Emily's blood went cold. What did he do? He went to the police, filed a report claiming you approached him at my brother's wedding, tried to extort him with false accusations about a murder. Luca's jaw was tight. He's painting himself as the victim and you as an opportunist who saw a chance to make money. That's insane. I know, Luca cut her off. But he's smart. He got ahead of the story. If you come forward now claiming you witnessed him commit murder, it looks like retaliation for his report. Emily sank into the nearest chair, legs suddenly unable to support her. So I can't go to the police. Not without looking like a liar who got caught. This is impossible. He's the one who killed someone, and I'm the one who looks guilty? James cleared his throat. It's a solid play, actually. Victor discredits you before you can discredit him. Classic preemptive strike. Thank you for the analysis, Luca said coldly. What I need is solutions. Tommy leaned forward. We could handle this the old-fashioned way. Make Victor disappear. Accidents happen. Too obvious. The police report creates a paper trail. If anything happens to Victor now, they'll look at Emily, at me. Luca shook his head. We need something cleaner. What about the body? Emily heard herself ask. The man Victor killed. If we could find it, prove it existed. 3 years later? James shook his head. Even if we found remains, connecting them to Victor would be nearly impossible without forensics from the time of death. So what do we do? Emily's voice was smaller than she wanted it to be. Luca looked at her, and something in his expression made her chest tighten. We go on the offensive, but I need to know everything first. Every detail about that night you haven't told me yet. I told you everything. Think harder. The man Victor killed mentioned Santos. What else did he say? Exact words. Emily closed her eyes, forcing herself back to that alley. The smell of garbage and blood. The wet sounds of fists hitting flesh. Victor's voice, harsh and demanding. He kept asking, where's Santos hiding? The man said he didn't know, that Santos didn't tell him anything. Victor said, Emily paused, pulling the memory into focus. He said, Raphael will have your head for this. Then the man said, Raphael doesn't know I'm here. Raphael. Luca exchanged a look with James. Did Victor use a last name? No, just Raphael. Tommy whistled low. If it's the Raphael I'm thinking of, Victor's playing a dangerous game. Who's Raphael? Emily asked. Rafael Cortez, James said. Runs one of the largest drug operations on the East Coast. Very territorial, very violent. If Victor was involved in anything connected to Cortez and it went sideways, then Raphael would want to know about it, Luca finished, especially if one of his people ended up dead. Emily's mind raced. You think the man Victor killed worked for this Raphael? Possibly. Or he knew something about Raphael's operation that Victor wanted kept quiet. Luca moved around the desk, energized now. Either way, if we can connect Victor to that death and tie it back to Raphael, we turn this into Raphael's problem instead of ours. How do we do that? Emily asked. We find proof, documentation, witnesses, something that puts Victor at the scene. Luca looked at James. The bar where Emily worked. Riley's in Oakmont. I need everything you can find about it. Who owned it? Who the regulars were? If there were any cameras nearby. That was 3 years ago, James said doubtfully. So start 3 years ago and work forward. Someone saw something. Someone always sees something. James nodded and stood. Tommy followed suit, both men heading for the door. And Tommy? Luca called. Put someone on Victor. I want to know everywhere he goes, everyone he talks to. If he sneezes, I want to know about it. Got it. They left, and Emily was alone with Luca. You think this will work? She asked. I think it's our best shot. He came closer, sitting on the edge of his desk. But Emily, if we do this, if we go after Victor this way, there's no going back. Rafael Cortez isn't someone you poke and walk away from. As opposed to Victor, who's been trying to kill me for 3 years. Fair point. A tired smile crossed his face. How are you holding up? I've been better. Emily looked down at her hand, still shaking slightly. Last night was a mistake, Luca said quickly. I shouldn't have kissed you. You're vulnerable. I'm supposed to be protecting you, and I crossed a line. Something in Emily's chest constricted painfully. Right, a mistake. That's not what I... Luca stopped, frustration flashing across his face. I'm saying it was bad timing, not that I regret it. What's the difference? The difference is I'd like to do it again, but not when you're scared and I'm the only thing between you and someone who wants you dead. That's not fair to you. Emily met his eyes. What if I don't care about fair? You should. I've spent 3 years caring about safe, about smart, about staying invisible. Where did that get me? She stood, moving closer to him. I'm tired of running from everything, including this. This being? Whatever this is. Between us. The words felt dangerous even as she said them. You're right that the timing is terrible, but terrible timing might be all we get. Luca reached out, his hand cupping her face. After this is over, when Victor's not a threat anymore, ask me again. And if we don't make it to after, we will. He said it with such certainty that Emily almost believed him. I don't lose, Emily, not when it matters. A knock interrupted whatever she might have said. James stuck his head in. Boss, we got something. You're going to want to see this. They followed James to a room Emily had never been in before, smaller than Luca's office, filled with monitors and computer equipment. Tommy sat at one of the keyboards, pulling up files on multiple screens. Riley's bar closed down 2 years ago, James said, but the building's owner kept security footage archived. Took some convincing, but we got access to the week around the date Emily gave us. You got footage from 3 years ago? Emily couldn't hide her surprise. The owner's paranoid about liability, keeps everything. Tommy pulled up a grainy video. This is the night of March 18th, rear alley camera. Watch the timestamp around 11:47 p.m. The screen showed a dark alley, poorly lit, the angle from somewhere above the back door. For several seconds, nothing moved. Then 2 figures appeared, one dragging the other. Emily's breath caught. Even with the poor quality, she recognized Victor's build, his movements. The other man was stumbling, clearly injured. Keep watching, Tommy said. On screen, Victor slammed the man against the wall. Their mouths moved, but there was no audio. Victor's arm came up, once, twice, 3 times. The man slumped. Victor hit him again, and again. Emily looked away. There's more, James said quietly. Watch what happens after. On screen, Victor stood over the body for a long moment. Then another figure appeared from the opposite end of the alley, someone Emily hadn't seen that night, approaching from the direction she'd run. The newcomer's face was partially visible when he turned toward the camera. That's Marcus Vento, Luca said, the one who brought Victor to the wedding. They talked for about 90 seconds, Tommy explained, fast-forwarding the footage. Then they both dragged the body out of frame. Camera doesn't catch where they take it. But it proves Victor was there, Emily said. It proves he killed that man. It proves someone died in an alley, James corrected. Without a body, without identification, it's circumstantial at best. Luca was quiet, studying the screen. Go back to when Vento shows up. Tommy rewound the footage. They watched again as Marcus appeared, as he and Victor talked over the body. There, Luca said. Stop it there. The image froze with Marcus facing the camera, his expression clear enough to read. He looked scared. Marcus wasn't part of the killing, Luca said slowly. He showed up after, which means Victor called him for cleanup. So Marcus knows where the body is, Emily finished. Possibly. Or at least he knows more than Victor wants anyone to know. Luca smiled, and it wasn't pleasant. And Marcus owes me money. A lot of money. From a card game last month that he's been slow to pay. You're going to leverage his debt? James asked. I'm going to have a conversation about the value of honesty and the importance of choosing the right friends. Luca's eyes never left the screen. Set it up. Tonight. Somewhere private. What about Victor? Emily asked. If you go after Marcus, Victor will know you're digging. Good. Let him know. Let him sweat. Luca finally looked away from the monitor. Victor made this personal when he filed that police report. Now, I'm going to show him what personal really means. The rest of the day passed in tense preparation. Emily stayed in Luca's office, watching as phone calls were made, plans arranged. She felt useless, a spectator in her own crisis, but Luca insisted she stay close. You're the only one who can verify what's on that footage, he explained. If Marcus tells us something that contradicts what you saw, I need to know immediately. Night fell. A car was arranged. James drove while Luca sat in back with Emily, both of them silent as they wound through the city toward an address in the industrial district. They pulled up to a warehouse, abandoned-looking, windows dark, the kind of place where bad things happened and nobody heard you scream. Emily's stomach churned. Stay in the car, Luca said. No. He turned to look at her. This isn't negotiable. He needs to see me. Marcus needs to see that I'm real, that I was there. Otherwise, it's just your word about what's on a video. Luca's jaw worked. This could get ugly. I've seen ugly before. After a long moment, he nodded. Stay behind me. If I tell you to leave, you leave. Understood? Understood. James led them inside through a side door. The warehouse was exactly as grim inside as out. Concrete floors, exposed beams, a a single chair sitting in the center under a hanging work light. Marcus Vento sat in that chair, hands zip-tied behind his back, looking significantly less confident than he had at the wedding. Two of Luca's men stood nearby, silent and watchful. "Luca," Marcus said, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "This is unnecessary. I told you I'd get you the money. This isn't about money anymore, Marcus." Luca moved into the light, and Emily followed, staying slightly behind him as instructed. "This is about Victor Hale." Marcus's face went pale. "I don't know what you're talking about." "March 18th, 3 years ago, Riley's Bar in Oakmont. Ring any bells?" "I've never been to Oakmont." Luca nodded to James, who pulled out a tablet and played the security footage. Marcus watched, his face draining of color with each second. "That's not... I wasn't..." "You were there," Emily said, stepping forward despite Luca's warning look. "I saw you. After Victor killed that man, you showed up. You helped him move the body." Marcus's eyes locked on Emily, recognition dawning. You were the girl in the alley. I was taking out trash. I saw everything. Then you know I didn't kill anyone? That was all Victor? I helped clean up. He called me, said he had a problem. I owed him a favor. Where's the body?" Luca's voice cut through Marcus's babbling. "I don't..." Luca moved fast, grabbing Marcus's shirt and jerking him forward. The chair tipped, only Luca's grip keeping Marcus from hitting the concrete. "I'm going to ask you one more time. Where did you take the body?" "The river. We took it to the river, dumped it off the old Morrison Bridge. I swear that's all I know." Luca held him there a moment longer, then let go. Marcus and the chair crashed backward. One of Luca's men caught it before it fully toppled. "Who was he?" Luca asked. "The dead man." "I don't know. Victor never said." "Try again." Marcus was breathing hard, sweat running down his face. "His name was Danny Ruiz. He worked for Rafael Cortez, low-level stuff. Victor said he'd been asking too many questions, getting too close to something he shouldn't." "What was he close to?" "I don't know. Victor didn't tell me details. Just that Danny had to go, and it had to look like he disappeared." Luca exchanged a look with James. "Did Rafael know?" "About Danny dying, no. Victor made sure it looked like Danny just took off, ran away. Rafael thought he'd stolen from the operation and bolted. But he didn't steal anything. No, Victor killed him to keep him quiet about something else, something bigger." Marcus looked between Luca and Emily, desperate now. "That's all I know, I swear. Victor never told me what Danny found out, just that it was bad enough to kill for." Emily felt sick. Danny Ruiz, the man finally had a name. He'd been someone's son, maybe someone's father, reduced to a body in a river because he'd asked the wrong questions. "What happened to his things?" she asked quietly. "Danny's belongings. Did Victor take them?" Marcus blinked, surprised by the question. "Yeah, there was a phone, a wallet. Victor kept them. Said they might be useful later." "He still has them?" "I don't know, maybe. Victor keeps trophies sometimes. Weird stuff from jobs he's done." Luca was very still. "Where does Victor keep his trophies?" "He's got a storage unit, east side near the rail yards. Unit 447 at Secure Lock Storage." "You're sure?" "I helped him move stuff there 6 months ago. That's where he keeps things he doesn't want in his apartment." Luca stepped back, nodding to his men. "Cut him loose." "What? That's it?" Marcus sounded almost disappointed. "Your debt's forgiven. Consider it payment for information." Luca's voice went cold. "But if I find out you warned Victor about this conversation, the next time you sit in that chair, you won't walk away. Clear?" "Crystal, I won't say anything. I swear." They left Marcus sitting there, still zip-tied, one of Luca's men staying behind to cut him free after they'd gone. In the car, Emily's hands wouldn't stop shaking. "You okay?" Luca asked. "Danny Ruiz. He had a name, he was a person, and Victor killed him like he was nothing." "People like Victor see everyone as nothing." Luca's hand found hers in the darkness. "But we're going to make sure Danny's death means something. We're going to use it to end this." "The storage unit. You're going to break in?" "I'm going to acquire what's inside, legally or otherwise. And if we find Danny's phone, his wallet, then we have evidence tying Victor to a member of Rafael Cortez's organization." Evidence that disappeared when Danny did. Raphael will have questions, and Victor won't have good answers. Emily understood the implication. They weren't just trying to prove Victor guilty, they were trying to make him someone else's problem. Rafael Cortez's problem. Is that justice? She asked quietly. Feeding Victor to another criminal? It's survival. Justice is a luxury we can't afford right now. He was right, and Emily hated that he was right. But Danny Ruiz was still dead, and she was still alive, and sometimes survival meant making ugly choices. They drove in silence back to the mansion. Emily's mind spun with everything they'd learned, everything that still needed to happen. The storage unit. Rafael Cortez. Victor's inevitable retaliation when he realized they were closing in. How long before Victor knows we talked to Marcus? She asked as they pulled up to the house. Hard to say. Marcus is scared enough to keep quiet for a while, but Victor's smart. He'll notice if Marcus starts avoiding him. So we need to move fast. We will. Tomorrow night. Luca helped her out of the car. James is arranging access to the storage facility. We'll have a few hours before anyone notices we were there. Inside, the mansion felt too quiet, too empty. Most of the staff had gone home for the evening. Just a few night security personnel moving like shadows through the halls. Luca walked Emily to her room, both of them stopping at her door like awkward teenagers after a date. Try to sleep, he said. Tomorrow's going to be difficult. Luca? Emily caught his arm before he could leave. Thank you for believing me, for not just handing me over to make your life easier. I told you, I keep my word. It's more than that. She searched his face. You could have protected yourself a dozen different ways, but you're choosing this, the hard way, the dangerous way. Why? He was quiet for a long moment, then reached up and touched her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone. Because I've spent my whole life surrounded by people who'd sell each other out for the right price. And then you showed up, this terrified woman in a gray uniform who'd rather clean toilets than compromise her hiding place. That kind of integrity is rare. I'm not that noble. I was just scared. You're still here. That takes more than fear. His hand dropped. Get some sleep, Emily. We'll finish this soon. He left, and Emily went inside her room, closing the door and leaning against it. Danny Ruiz's face haunted her, or the face she imagined for him since she'd never seen it clearly that night. He'd died for asking questions, for getting close to something dangerous. And now Emily was doing the same thing, digging into the same darkness that had killed him. The difference was she had Luca, but for how long? When this was over, if they survived it, would he still look at her like she mattered? Or would she just be another problem solved, filed away and forgotten? Emily pushed away from the door and changed into sleep clothes she wouldn't actually sleep in. Her mind was too active, running through scenarios, imagining everything that could go wrong tomorrow. She was still awake when her phone buzzed at 2 a.m. Unknown number again. Emily stared at it, debating. Then she answered, Hello, Emily. Victor's voice was smooth, almost friendly. I hope I'm not calling too late. What do you want? I want to apologize. For the misunderstanding at the wedding, for the police report. That was just business, you understand, protecting my interests. You're a liar and a murderer. Strong words from someone in your position. His tone hardened. I know Moretti has you tucked away in his mansion. I know he's been making inquiries about me. I even know he talked to Marcus tonight. Emily's blood froze. How? I have friends everywhere, Emily, even in Luca Moretti's organization. Victor let that sink in. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to convince Luca to back off. Tell him you made a mistake, that you were confused about what you saw. Tell him whatever you want, but this ends, or people start dying. You can't threaten Luca. I'm not threatening him. I'm threatening you. Victor's voice dropped to something colder. And everyone you've talked to, Marcus is already a loose end. James Reeves, Tommy Marconi, they're all loose ends, and you know what I do with loose ends. Emily's throat closed. You won't test me, please. I'd love an excuse. The line went quiet, except for Victor's breathing. You have until tomorrow night. Tell Moretti to walk away, or I start cutting threads. The call ended. Emily sat frozen, phone clutched in her shaking hand. Victor knew about Marcus, which meant either Marcus had talked despite his promises, Or Victor had someone inside Luca's operation feeding him information. She should tell Luca immediately, wake him up, warn him. But it was 2 a.m., and Victor's deadline was tomorrow night anyway. A few more hours wouldn't matter. Except Emily knew better. In her experience, a few hours was exactly how long it took for everything to fall apart. She got up, pulled on real clothes, and left her room. The mansion was dark, just emergency lighting along the baseboards. She made her way to Luca's wing, trying to remember which door was his. She'd only been to this part of the house once, and that was during the day when Mrs. Castellano had given her a tour of areas to avoid. The third door, she thought. Or maybe the fourth. Emily knocked softly on the third door. No answer. She tried the fourth. "It's open," came Luca's voice. She found him sitting at a desk by the window, still dressed, papers spread in front of him. He looked up when she entered, concern immediate on his face. "What's wrong?" "Victor called. He knows about Marcus. He knows we talked to him." Luca's expression went cold. "When?" "Just now, 2 minutes ago." Emily closed the door behind her. "He gave me an ultimatum. Tell you to back off or he starts killing people. Everyone we've talked to, everyone helping us." "Marcus talked. Or you have a leak." Luca stood, moving to his phone. "Either way, we move up the timeline. We hit the storage unit tonight, now." It's the middle of the night. Better than waiting for Victor to clean it out. He was already dialing, speaking rapid-fire instructions to whoever answered. "James, wake up. We're moving. No, now. I don't care. Figure it out. 30 minutes. He hung up and looked at Emily. "Go get changed. Something dark. Something you can move in. We're both going." "Luca, no arguments. Victor made this personal. You're staying where I can see you until this is finished." Emily nodded and ran back to her room. She changed into dark jeans and a black sweater, the closest thing she had to breaking and entering clothes. When she came back downstairs, Luca was waiting with James and Tommy, all of them dressed similarly. "The facility has minimal security," James explained as they headed to the cars. "One guard, cameras at the entrance, but the individual units aren't monitored after hours." "How are we getting in?" Emily asked. Tommy held up a set of bolt cutters. "The old-fashioned way." They took 2 cars splitting up. Emily rode with Luca and James while Tommy went separately with 2 other men Emily didn't recognize. The storage facility sat in an industrial area that looked worse at night. Chain-link fences, flickering streetlights, buildings that had seen better decades. The sign for secure lock storage was half burned out, reading Sec Lock. "Comforting," Emily muttered. They parked a block away and approached on foot. The guard shack at the entrance was occupied by someone watching something on their phone, not paying attention to the rows of units behind them. James made a call. Somewhere in the distance, a car alarm went off. The guard looked up, annoyed, and walked toward the sound to investigate. "Move," Luca said. They slipped past the entrance and into the maze of storage units, row after row of identical metal doors, all numbered, all locked. They found Unit 447 in the back corner, as far from the entrance as possible. Tommy made quick work of the lock with his bolt cutters. The door rolled up with a grinding sound that seemed impossibly loud in the quiet. Inside, cardboard boxes were stacked neatly, labeled with dates and names Emily didn't recognize. Luca pulled out a flashlight and started searching. "What are we looking for exactly?" one of Tommy's men asked. "A phone, a wallet, anything belonging to Danny Ruiz from 3 years ago." Luca opened a box labeled Personal Effects 2022. They searched in tense silence, opening boxes, sifting through Victor's collection of trophies from whatever crimes he'd committed. Emily found a box of jewelry. Watches, rings, necklaces, all expensive-looking, all probably stolen. "Here," James said quietly. He held up a phone, old model, cracked screen. "Password protected, but we can get around that." "Bag it," Luca said. "Keep looking." Emily opened another box and found wallets, dozens of them, organized by year. She pulled out the stack from 3 years ago and started going through them. The third wallet had a driver's license with Danny Ruiz's face. "Found it," she said. Luca came over, took the wallet carefully. Inside was the license, $60 in cash, a credit card, and a photo of a young woman holding a baby. Emily's chest ached. Danny Ruiz had been someone's father, someone's partner, and Victor had killed him and kept his wallet like a souvenir. Anything else? Luca asked the group. Just more of the same, Tommy reported. Victor's got quite a collection. Take the phone and wallet. Leave everything else exactly how we found it. Luca was already moving toward the door. We need to be gone before that guard finishes checking out the alarm. They rolled the door down, leaving the broken lock. They'd notice it eventually, but maybe not immediately. Back through the rows of units, past the still empty guard shack, to the cars. Emily's heart didn't stop racing until they were miles away. Now what? She asked as they drove back toward the mansion. Now James gets into that phone and finds whatever Danny found that got him killed. Luca's hand found hers in the darkness. And then we give Rafael Cortez a reason to come after Victor instead of us. It sounded simple when he said it like that. Emily knew better than to believe simple, but she held on to his hand anyway and tried to hope they'd all survive long enough to see morning. They made it back to the mansion just as the sky started turning gray with pre-dawn light. Emily's hand still shook from adrenaline as they filed into Luca's office, James immediately setting up his laptop and connecting Danny Ruiz's phone to it via cable. How long? Luca asked, shrugging out of his jacket. Depends on the encryption. Could be an hour, could be 6. James's fingers flew across the keyboard. Old phone like this, probably not long. Tommy placed Danny's wallet on Luca's desk like evidence at a crime scene. The driver's license stared up at them. Daniel Ruiz, age 34, brown hair, brown eyes, organ donor. In the photo, he was smiling slightly, the kind of smile people wore when forced to look pleasant at the DMV. Emily picked up the photo that had been tucked inside. The woman was young, maybe mid-20s, dark hair pulled back. The baby couldn't have been more than 6 months old, wrapped in a blue blanket. We need to find out who they are, she said quietly. Luca looked at her. Why? Because Danny had a family. They deserve to know what happened to him. Emily, I know we can't go to the police. I know we can't bring Danny back, but his family has spent 3 years wondering. Her voice cracked. They deserve better than that. Luca was quiet for a moment, then nodded to James. Run the name, find next of kin. On it, James said without looking up from his screen. Emily set the photo down carefully, like it might shatter. She felt Luca watching her. You should get some rest, he said. This could take hours. I'm not tired. You're exhausted. I can see it. So are you. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. Fair point. The office fell into tense silence, broken only by James's typing. Tommy had disappeared to coordinate security. Victor knowing about their movements meant everyone was on high alert. Emily sank into one of the leather chairs and tried not to think about what Victor might be planning. 20 minutes later, James sat back. I'm in. Everyone's attention snapped to him. The phone's old, but the data's intact. Texts, calls, photos, everything. James pulled up the phone's contents on his laptop screen. Looks like Danny was documenting something. Lots of photos of documents, ledgers, what looks like transaction records. Show me, Luca said, moving behind James's chair. Emily joined them, looking over James's shoulder at the screen. Photo after photo of handwritten notebooks, columns of numbers, dates, names. It looked like accounting records, but the amounts were staggering. Hundreds of thousands of dollars changing hands weekly. Danny was tracking money, James said, scrolling through. These are Rafael Cortez's books. Distribution records, payment schedules, the whole operation laid out. Why would Danny photograph his own boss's records? Emily asked. Because someone asked him to. Luca pointed at a text message thread. Look at the dates. Danny started taking these photos 2 weeks before he died. Someone wanted intel on Rafael's operation. James opened the text thread. The messages were brief, coded, but the pattern was clear. Someone named V asking for updates. Danny sending confirmation that he'd gotten more information. V for Victor, Tommy said from the doorway. He'd returned without anyone noticing. Victor was using Danny to spy on Rafael, which means Victor was working for someone else, someone who wanted leverage over Rafael Cortez. Luca's jaw tightened. That's why he killed Danny. Not because Danny found something out, but because Danny was going to tell Rafael who was really pulling his strings. Emily's mind raced. So Victor wasn't working for Rafael? He was probably playing both sides, taking Rafael's money while feeding information to a rival. Luca straightened. When Danny figured it out, Victor had to eliminate him before he could talk. "Look at this," James said, pulling up another text. It was from Danny to Victor, sent the day before he died. "I know what you're doing. We need to meet. This ends, or I tell Raphael everything." "Danny threatened to expose him," Emily said softly. "That's why Victor killed him that night. It wasn't planned." Danny forced his hand. The room went quiet as they absorbed the implications. "Does Raphael know any of this?" Tommy asked. "No way. If Raphael knew Victor had been spying on him, Victor would already be dead." Luca started pacing. "But now we have proof. Everything Danny collected, every transaction he documented. This is enough to burn Victor completely." "So we give it to Raphael," Emily said. "Let him handle Victor." "Not yet." Luca stopped pacing. "Victor knows we have this phone by now. He'll have noticed the storage unit was hit. He's already planning his countermove. If we go to Raphael before securing our position, Victor might convince Raphael we're the problem, not him. Then what do? We make Victor come to us, force him into a position where his only option is to deal directly." James looked skeptical. "How do you plan to do that?" "By letting him know exactly what we found. Let him understand that we have everything Danny collected and we're willing to use it." Luca's expression was cold. Victor wanted to play games with police reports and ultimatums. Now we show him what real leverage looks like. Emily's stomach churned. "You're going to provoke him. I'm going to back him into a corner. There's a difference. Not much of one. He'll come at you with everything he has. Good. Let him come here, to my territory, where I control the situation." Luca looked at her. "Trust me." Those two words shouldn't have been enough. But Emily found herself nodding anyway, because what choice did she have? They were already in too deep to back out now. The plan came together over the next few hours as exhaustion and coffee blurred into a strange kind of focus. James would reach out to one of Victor's known associates, someone low-level enough to be approachable, but connected enough to get a message through. The message would be simple. Luca Moretti had Danny Ruiz's phone and everything on it. If Victor wanted to prevent that information from reaching Rafael Cortez, he'd need to negotiate. "He'll want proof," Tommy said. "We should send him one of the photos, something specific enough that he knows we're not bluffing." Luca selected an image, a page from Raphael's ledger showing a massive payment to a shell company Victor had ties to. Enough to prove they had the real phone, not enough to give away everything they knew. "Send it," Luca ordered. James attached the image to an encrypted message and hit send. Now they waited. Emily excused herself to finally get some sleep, but she only made it to her room before her phone buzzed. Her personal phone, not the burner. A number she hadn't seen in 3 years. She answered with shaking hands. "Emily Brooks?" A woman's voice, uncertain. "Or I guess it's Carter now?" "Who is this?" "My name is Sophia Ruiz. You knew my husband, Danny." Emily's breath stopped. She sank onto her bed, gripping the phone. "How did you get this number?" "A man called me an hour ago, said his name was James Reeves, said you'd been trying to find me, that you had information about Danny." Sophia's voice wavered. "Is it true? Do you know what happened to him?" Emily closed her eyes. James must have tracked down Danny's family and called them. Part of her wanted to be angry that he'd done it without asking, but mostly she was just tired. "Yes," she said quietly. "I know what happened. The police said he ran away, that he stole money and disappeared. But Danny wouldn't. He had a son. He wouldn't just leave us." "He didn't run away." Emily's throat was tight. "I saw him 3 years ago, the night he died." Silence on the other end, then a sound like a sob being swallowed. "How?" Sophia managed. Emily told her. Not everything, not the storage unit or Luca's plan or the danger she was in, but the essential truth, that she'd witnessed Danny's murder, that the man who killed him was named Victor Hale, that Danny had died trying to do the right thing. He was going to tell his boss about Victor, Emily said. He was trying to stop something bad. He died protecting people. It was a small comfort, maybe no comfort at all, but Sophia deserved something better than the lies she'd been living with. "Thank you," Sophia whispered, "for telling me, for not letting him just be gone without anyone knowing. I'm sorry I didn't come forward sooner. I was scared." You're coming forward now. That's what matters. Sophia took a shaky breath. The man who called, James, he said you were working to make sure Victor pays for what he did. We're trying. Good. Make him pay. For Danny. For our son who'll never know his father. Sophia's voice hardened. Make him pay for all of it. The call ended, and Emily sat in the silence of her room, Danny's family's grief sitting heavy on her chest. She'd spent 3 years running from that night, trying to forget, trying to pretend it hadn't happened. But it had happened. Danny Ruiz had died, and Sophia Ruiz had spent 3 years believing her husband had abandoned them. That was on Victor. But it was also on Emily for staying silent. She couldn't change the past, but she could make sure the future looked different. Emily splashed water on her face, changed into fresh clothes, and went back downstairs. She found Luca in his office staring at his phone like he could will it to ring. Sophia called me, Emily said. He looked up. James's work. I should have asked you first. No, it was the right thing to do. She moved closer. She deserves to know what happened to Danny, to know he didn't abandon her. Knowing might make it harder, or it might give her closure. Emily sat across from him. Either way, it's the truth. That's worth something. Luca was quiet for a moment. You're different than when you first got here. How? Less afraid, or maybe just afraid of different things. I'm terrified, Emily admitted, but not of the same things I used to be afraid of. Running doesn't scare me anymore. Staying does. Why? Because staying means caring about the outcome, means caring about people. She met his eyes. Means I have something to lose. Before Luca could respond, his phone rang. He checked the screen and his expression went cold. It's Victor. He answered on speaker. Moretti. Victor's voice was calm, controlled. I got your message. Then you know what I have. I know you broke into my storage unit and stole my property. That's a crime. So is murder. Want to compare notes? Victor laughed, but there was no humor in it. You think you're clever. You think you've got me cornered, but you're forgetting something important. What's that? I'm not the only one with secrets. You want to play this game? Fine. But remember, I know where Emily Carter sleeps. I know which room she's in right now. 3rd floor, east wing, 2nd door on the left. Emily's blood froze. Luca's hand tightened on the phone. You come near her. I'm just making a point. You have leverage over me. I have leverage over you, so let's be adults about this and make a deal. I'm listening. You give me the phone and everything you took from my storage unit. In exchange, I disappear. Leave the city, leave Emily alone, we all go our separate ways. And Raphael never finds out what you were doing. Raphael's a separate problem, one I'll handle on my own time. Luca glanced at Emily, a question in his eyes. She shook her head slightly. They couldn't trust Victor to actually leave. He'd agree to anything to get the evidence back, then come after them the moment he felt safe. Not good enough, Luca said. You want the phone, you come get it. Tonight, Pier 49. Just you. You think I'm stupid enough to walk into a trap? You think I'm stupid enough to meet you anywhere you control? Pier 49 or nothing. You get the phone, we get your word, you're done. Face to face, no intermediaries. Victor was quiet. Emily could practically hear him calculating odds, weighing options. Midnight, Victor said finally. And Moretti? If I even smell a setup, Emily's the first one who pays for it. We clear? Crystal. The line went dead. Emily's hands were shaking. He knows where my room is. How does he know that? Someone told him. Someone in this house. Luca stood, already moving. James, Tommy, get in here. Both men appeared within seconds. We have a leak, Luca said flatly. Someone's been feeding Victor information. I want every member of staff questioned. Everyone who had access to the East Wing in the past week. That's a lot of people, James said. I don't care, do it. Tommy nodded and left immediately. James lingered. What happened? He asked. Luca filled him in on Victor's call, on the meeting at Pier 49. James's expression grew darker with each word. It's a trap, James said. Has to be. Victor's not coming alone. Neither am I, but he doesn't need to know that. Luca looked at Emily. You're staying here? Locked in my office with armed security. No arguments. For once, Emily didn't fight him. The thought of Victor knowing exactly where she slept made her skin crawl. The rest of the day was chaos barely contained. Staff members were questioned one by one. Security footage was reviewed. Phone records were pulled. By evening, they had their answer. Maria, the housemaid who'd warned Emily about Vanessa's car accident, had been making calls to an unlisted number. When confronted, she broke down immediately. "He said he'd hurt my sister," Maria sobbed in Luca's office while Emily watched from the corner. "She's sick. She needs medication we can't afford. Victor said he'd pay for everything if I just told him small things. What room Emily was in, when Luca left the house. Nothing important." "Nothing important?" Luca's voice was ice. "You've been giving a killer intelligence on this household for weeks." "I didn't know. I didn't know what he was going to do with it." Tommy stood by the door, hand on his weapon. Emily felt sick. Maria had seemed harmless, friendly even, but Victor had found her weakness and exploited it. "Get her out of my house," Luca said, "and make sure her sister gets the medication she needs. Then make sure Maria understands what happens if she talks to Victor again." Tommy escorted Maria out. Emily moved closer to Luca. "You're still paying for her sister's treatment?" "Her sister didn't betray anyone. And fear makes people do stupid things." He looked exhausted. "Maria was just trying to save someone she loved. I understand that." The words hung heavy between them. By 11 p.m., everyone was in position. James had men stationed around Pier 49, not visible, but close enough to intervene if things went wrong. Tommy would be with Luca, along with 2 others. Emily would stay at the mansion with 4 armed guards, locked in Luca's office with instructions not to open the door for anyone but him. "If something happens," Luca said, pulling Emily aside before he left, "if you don't hear from me by 1 a.m., James has instructions. He'll get you out of the city, set you up somewhere safe." "Don't talk like that. I'm being realistic. Victor's dangerous and he's desperate. Desperate men make mistakes, but they also burn everything down on their way out." Emily grabbed his jacket. "Then don't go. Let James handle it. Stay here where it's safe." "This is my fight. I pulled you into it. I'm going to finish it." He covered her hand with his. "But when it's over, when Victor's not a threat anymore, we're going to have a conversation." "About what?" "About what happens next. For both of us." He kissed her then, quick and hard, like he was trying to say everything he didn't have time to put into words. Then he was gone, and Emily was alone with her guards and the agonizing wait. The office clock ticked toward midnight with excruciating slowness. Emily paced, tried to sit, paced again. The guard stood silent and professional, not engaging with her nervous energy. At 11:47, James called. "We're in position," he said over speaker. "Luca and Tommy just arrived at the pier. No sign of Victor yet." "Keep me updated," Emily said. The minutes crawled by. 11:52, 11:56, midnight. "Victor's here," James reported. "Black sedan, 2 other cars behind him. He brought backup." Emily's heart hammered. "How many?" "At least 6 guys, maybe more in the cars." A pause. "Wait, Luca's approaching. They're talking." Static crackled over the line. Emily strained to hear anything useful. Then gunfire. "Shots fired," James yelled. "Luca's down." "Repeat. Luca's down." Emily's world stopped. "What?" "Victor's men opened fire. It's a bloodbath down here." More gunshots, shouting, the sound of tires squealing. Then the line went dead. Emily stood frozen, phone in her hand, James's words echoing in her head. "Luca's down. Luca's down." "We need to go," one of the guards said. "Now. If Victor's men are coming here." "We don't know that," Emily said, but her voice sounded distant. "Ma'am, if Mr. Moretti is compromised, this location is compromised. We have orders to evacuate you." They were probably right, but Emily couldn't make her legs move. Luca was down. That could mean anything from injured to dead, and she didn't know which, and the not knowing was worse than anything. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered. "Emily Carter," Victor's voice, slightly breathless. "Your boyfriend's bleeding out on a dock right now. Want to save him?" "You son of a—" "Save the insults. Here's the deal. You bring me Danny's phone and everything you took from my storage unit. You come alone. I let Moretti live." "I'm not stupid enough to believe that." "Then he dies. Your choice." Victor's voice hardened. You've got 30 minutes. Pier 49. Alone. Or I put another bullet in him just to watch him suffer. The line went dead. Emily looked at the guards. I need Danny's phone and Victor's wallet. Where did Luca put them? Ma'am, you can't seriously be considering— Where are they? One of the guards reluctantly pointed to Luca's desk. Locked drawer, top right, but you're not going anywhere. Those were Mr. Moretti's direct orders. Emily found the drawer, forced it open with a letter opener when the guard wouldn't give her the key. The phone and wallet were inside, sealed in evidence bags. She grabbed them both. I'm sorry, she said to the guards, but I can't let him die because of me. Miss Carter, this is a trap. Victor will kill you both. Probably. But doing nothing guarantees Luca dies. She moved toward the door. You can either help me or get out of my way. Either way, I'm going. The guards exchanged looks, then the leader sighed. We're coming with you, but we stay back, out of sight. You walk in alone like Victor wants, but we're there if it goes bad. It was better than nothing. They took one of Luca's cars, driving through empty streets toward the waterfront. Emily's mind raced. This was insane. She was walking into a trap to save a man she'd known for barely 2 weeks, a man who'd pulled her into this nightmare in the first place. But he'd also protected her, believed her, fought for her when running would have been easier. She owed him this, even if it killed her. The pier came into view. Dark water, old warehouses, shipping containers stacked like children's blocks. 2 cars were parked near the water's edge, bodies on the ground that Emily tried not to look at too closely. Let me out here, she told the driver. Miss Carter. Stay back, watch. If I'm not out in 10 minutes, call the police and tell them everything. She grabbed the evidence bags. Promise me. Reluctantly, they agreed. Emily walked toward the pier alone, evidence clutched in her shaking hands. The night was cold, wind cutting off the water. She could smell blood and gunpowder. Victor stepped out from behind a shipping container. He held a gun, pointed casually at the ground. Behind him, 2 of his men dragged someone forward. Luca. He was alive but barely conscious, blood soaking his shirt from what looked like a shoulder wound. His face was pale, eyes unfocused. Emily, he slurred. No, run. Touching, Victor said. Now where's my property? Emily held up the bags. Let him go first. I don't think so. You give me what's mine, then I decide what happens to Moretti. That wasn't the deal. The deal was you come alone. I see at least 3 heat signatures in that car you came in. Victor's smile was cold. You think I'm an amateur? Now hand over the phone or I shoot him in the head. Emily's mind raced. She was out of options, out of leverage, out of time. She threw the bags at Victor's feet. He picked them up, checked the contents, nodded with satisfaction. See? That wasn't so hard. Now let him go. About that, Victor raised his gun, pointing it at Luca. I think I'll just eliminate both problems tonight. The shot rang out before Emily could scream, but it wasn't Victor's gun that fired. Victor jerked, surprise crossing his face as blood bloomed across his chest. He looked down at the wound, then up at something behind Emily. She turned. Rafael Cortez stood 20 feet away, flanked by a dozen armed men. He lowered his smoking gun. Victor, hail, Rafael said, his accent thick. You've been a busy man. Victor stumbled backward, hand pressed to his chest. Rafael, I can explain. I got a very interesting package an hour ago. Photos of my ledgers, records of my operation, all taken by Danny Ruiz. Rafael moved closer, along with a note explaining how you used Danny to spy on me, how you killed him to cover your tracks. Emily's mind clicked. James. James must have sent the evidence to Rafael while they were setting up the meeting with Victor. That's a lie, Victor gasped. Moretti's trying to turn you against me. Luca Moretti didn't send me anything. The package came from an anonymous source. Very thorough, very convincing. Rafael looked at his men. Kill him. Wait! Victor fell to his knees. I can give you names, people who want you dead. I can— The second shot silenced him permanently. Victor Hale crumpled to the ground, dead before he finished falling. Rafael turned his attention to Emily. You witnessed Danny's death. It wasn't a question. Emily nodded, not trusting her voice. My men will want to speak with you. Get details. Make sure we understand everything Victor did. His eyes were cold. But first, you should see to your friend. He's lost a lot of blood. Raphael and his men disappeared as quickly as they'd appeared, leaving Emily alone with Luca and the bodies. She ran to him, dropping to her knees. "Stay with me. The guards are calling an ambulance." "Emily." Luca's hand found hers, grip weak. "Stupid. Coming here. So stupid. Says the man who got shot." "Fair." He coughed, winced. "Victor? Dead. Raphael killed him." Something like satisfaction crossed Luca's face. "James? Alive, I think. I don't know who else, Sirens cut through the night. The guards must have called it in immediately after the shooting stopped. "Listen to me," Luca said urgently. "When the police come. You don't know anything. You were never here. I'm not leaving you." "Emily? No. I spent 3 years running and hiding, and it got me nowhere. I'm done running." She squeezed his hand. "I'm staying. We're finishing this together." He looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. "Together." The ambulances arrived, then the police. Emily answered questions in a daze. Yes, she'd witnessed the shooting. No, she didn't know why Victor Hale was there. Yes, she'd come to meet Luca and walked into a war zone. It wasn't entirely true, but it wasn't entirely false either. They took Luca away on a stretcher. Emily rode with him, holding his hand as paramedics worked to stop the bleeding. He'd been shot in the shoulder, maybe punctured a lung. Bad, but survivable if they hurried. At the hospital, they separated them. Emily was taken to give a formal statement while Luca went to surgery. Hours blurred together. Questions from police. Calls from James confirming he and Tommy had survived the firefight. News that Victor's men had either fled or been killed. Dawn was breaking when a doctor finally found Emily in the waiting room. "Mr. Moretti is stable," she said. "The surgery went well. He'll recover fully." Emily's legs nearly gave out with relief. They let her see him an hour later. He was awake, groggy from anesthesia, bandaged but alive. "Hey," he said when she walked in. "Hey yourself." Emily sat in the chair beside his bed. "You look terrible. You should see the other guy." "I did. He's dead." "Right." Luca's good hand found hers. "We did it. Victor's gone. Raphael's people want to talk to me about Danny. Tell them everything. Raphael respected that we brought him the truth. You'll be safe." Emily nodded, throat tight. It was over. Actually, over. Victor was dead. The threat eliminated. Her 3 years of running finally at an end. "What happens now?" she asked quietly. Luca's thumb traced circles on her palm. "Now we figure out what normal looks like. For both of us." "I don't think I remember normal." "Me neither. We'll figure it out together." That word again. Together. Emily had been alone for so long she'd forgotten what it felt like to have someone in her corner. To have someone worth staying for. "I'm not going back to cleaning kitchens," she said. "Good. You're terrible at it anyway." She laughed despite everything. "What am I supposed to do then?" "Whatever you want. You're free now, Emily. Actually free. No more running, no more hiding. You get to choose." The weight of that choice settled over her, terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. "I choose this," she said finally. "Whatever this is with you, I choose to stay and figure it out." Luca's eyes softened. "Even knowing what I am, what my world looks like? Especially knowing that. You didn't have to protect me. You chose to. That means something." "It means everything," he corrected quietly. They sat in comfortable silence as morning light filled the hospital room, both of them battered and exhausted, but alive. The future was uncertain, probably complicated, definitely dangerous. But for the first time in 3 years, Emily wasn't facing it alone. And that made all the difference. 3 days later, Rafael Cortez sent 2 men to the hospital. They arrived in the afternoon, suits too expensive for the sterile hallways, moving with the kind of confidence that made nurses step aside without being asked. Emily was sitting with Luca when they knocked. He was awake now, color returning to his face, complaining about the hospital food and the boredom. "Mr. Moretti," the older of the 2 men said. "Miss Carter, Mr. Cortez would like to speak with you both." Emily's hand tightened on the edge of Luca's bed. "Here? A private room has been arranged, downstairs. If you're able to walk, Mr. Moretti." Luca pushed himself upright with a wince. "I can walk." You just had surgery, Emily protested, and I'll have it again if I disrespect Raphael by refusing to meet him. Luca swung his legs over the side of the bed. Help me up. Against her better judgment, Emily did. Luca leaned on her more than he'd probably admit, one arm in a sling, the other draped across her shoulders. They followed Raphael's men to an elevator that took them to a sublevel Emily didn't know existed. The private room was actually a suite, comfortable chairs, a couch, coffee service already laid out. Rafael Cortez stood by the window, looking out at the parking garage beyond. He turned when they entered. Luca, Miss Carter, thank you for agreeing to meet. Like we had a choice, Emily muttered. Raphael's mouth twitched. You always have a choice. Some are just easier to live with than others. He gestured to the chairs. Please, sit. You look like you're about to fall over, Luca. Luca lowered himself carefully into a chair, and Emily took the one beside him. Raphael's men positioned themselves by the door. I wanted to thank you, Raphael said, sitting across from them, for bringing Victor's betrayal to my attention. That took courage, or desperation, possibly both. We didn't do it for you, Luca said. We did it to stay alive. Honest, I appreciate that. Raphael poured coffee from the service, offered cups to both of them. Emily took hers with shaking hands. Danny Ruiz worked for me for 6 years. He was reliable, quiet, never asked for more than his fair share. When he disappeared, I thought he'd gotten greedy, stolen from me and run. Victor made sure you'd think that, Emily said quietly. Yes. Very clever. Very thorough. Raphael's expression darkened. Danny had a family, a wife, a son. I made sure they were taken care of after he disappeared. Guilt money, I suppose. But knowing he was murdered, that he died trying to protect my operation, he shook his head. That changes things. Sophia deserves to know the truth, Emily said, about how Danny died, why he died. I've already sent people to speak with her, to explain what we learned, to make sure she and the boy are provided for properly this time. Raphael's eyes found Emily's. She asked about you, the witness who finally came forward. Emily's throat tightened. What did you tell her? That you risked your life to give Danny justice. That you could have stayed hidden, but chose to speak anyway. Raphael sipped his coffee. She wants to meet you. When you're ready. The thought of facing Sophia, of looking Danny's widow in the eye, made Emily want to hide again. But she'd promised herself no more running. Okay, she said. When this settles down, I'll meet her. Raphael nodded, satisfied. As for the two of you, I consider this matter closed. Victor is dead. His organization is scattered. You helped me eliminate a cancer in my operation. As far as I'm concerned, you've earned neutrality. Neutrality, Luca repeated, not friendship. I don't have friends, Luca. I have associates and enemies. You're neither now. That's as close to friendship as I offer. Raphael stood, signaling the meeting was ending. But understand, this neutrality extends only as long as you don't interfere with my business. We stay out of each other's way. Agreed? Agreed. Raphael's men moved to escort them out, but Raphael stopped Emily with a hand on her arm. You saw him die, he said quietly. Danny, you were there. Emily nodded. Did he suffer? She thought about lying, about offering comfort, but Raphael had come to them with truth. He deserved the same. Yes, she said. It wasn't quick. Victor made sure of that. Raphael's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Thank you for your honesty. And Miss Carter, you're braver than you think. They rode the elevator back up in silence. Emily helped Luca back to his room, where a nurse immediately scolded him for leaving bed before being cleared. Worth it, Luca said, settling back against the pillows with a grimace. Raphael giving us neutrality means we're safe. Actually safe. Emily sank into her chair. It doesn't feel real yet. Give it time. Your brain's still waiting for the other shoe to drop. How long until that feeling goes away? I'll let you know when I find out. They sat in comfortable silence, the steady beep of monitors the only sound. Emily thought about Sophia Ruiz, about meeting her eventually, about trying to explain 3 years of silence. She thought about Danny's son, growing up without a father, and Victor dead on a dock, and all the violence that had brought them to this moment. Hey, Luca said, pulling her from her thoughts. Where'd you go? Just thinking about everything, about how many people died because of one man's greed. That's the world we live in. People like Victor exist because there's always someone willing to pay for their services. Does that include you? Luca was quiet for a moment. Sometimes. I'm not going to lie to you about what I am, Emily. I've done things you'd hate me for, hurt people, made choices that kept me up at night. I'm not a good man. But you protected me when you didn't have to. That doesn't erase the rest. No, but it matters anyway. Emily met his eyes. I'm not asking you to be someone you're not. I just need to know. Moving forward, what does this look like? Us, I mean. I don't know, Luca admitted. I've never done this before. Cared about someone who wasn't part of the life, part of the business. It's complicated. Everything's complicated. That's not an answer. Then how about this? I want to try. Whatever this is between us, I want to see where it goes. No promises, no guarantees, just honest effort. He reached for her hand. That enough for you? Emily considered. A month ago, she'd been scrubbing floors and keeping her head down, convinced she'd die alone in some anonymous place. Now she was sitting in a hospital room, holding hands with a crime boss who'd taken a bullet partly because of her, talking about a future she'd stopped believing in. Yeah, she said, that's enough. The hospital released Luca 5 days later with strict instructions about physical therapy, medications, and avoiding strenuous activity. He ignored most of them within 24 hours, much to everyone's frustration. Emily had moved from her small staff room to a guest suite on the second floor. Luca's insistence, though she suspected it was also about having her closer. The mansion felt different now. Safer, maybe, or just less like a place she was hiding in. Mrs. Castellano found her in the kitchen one morning making coffee. Miss Carter, the head housekeeper said, her tone unreadable. A word? Emily tensed. Of course. I wanted to apologize for Maria, for not noticing that something was wrong with her before she could compromise household security. That's not your fault. Victor was good at finding people's weaknesses. Still, it happened under my watch. Mrs. Castellano's severe expression softened slightly. And I wanted to say, you've earned your place here. Not as staff. As someone who matters to Mr. Moretti. That's rare. Don't take it lightly. Before Emily could respond, the housekeeper had disappeared in her usual efficient manner, leaving Emily standing alone with her coffee and her thoughts. James showed up later that afternoon with Tommy, both of them looking serious. We need to talk about Marcus Vento, James said without preamble. Luca looked up from the paperwork he'd been reviewing despite doctor's orders. What about him? He's gone. Disappeared 2 days after Victor died. Packed up his apartment, withdrew all his cash, vanished. Smart man, Luca said. He knows Raphael will eventually want to talk to everyone connected to Victor. Should we find him? Tommy asked. No, let him run. He gave us what we needed. As far as I'm concerned, his debt's paid. Luca signed something, set it aside. Anything else? The police closed the investigation into the pier shooting, James reported. Ruled it a gang conflict. No charges being filed. We're clear. And the media? Victor Hale identified as a known criminal killed in a dispute with rivals. Your name didn't come up, neither did Emily's. Emily exhaled in relief. She'd been waiting for reporters to show up, for her face to end up on the news, for the past to become public record. But it seemed Luca's connections ran deep enough to keep them both out of the spotlight. Good work, Luca told James. Anything else? Just this. Tommy pulled out an envelope, handed it to Emily. It arrived for you this morning, no return address. Emily opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a single photograph, the one from Danny's wallet, showing Sophia and their baby, and a handwritten note. Thank you for giving me the truth. Thank you for not letting Danny disappear without anyone knowing what really happened. When you're ready to meet, call me. There's no rush. Just know that you gave our family something we'd lost. Closure and the knowledge that Danny died protecting people, not running from them. That matters. You matter. Thank you. Sophia. A phone number was written at the bottom. Emily pressed the note to her chest, eyes burning. She'd spent 3 years convinced that staying silent was the only way to survive. But maybe survival wasn't just about staying alive. Maybe it was about living with yourself after. You okay? Luca asked quietly after James and Tommy had left. Yeah, I think I am. Emily carefully folded the note, tucked it back in the envelope. I'm going to call her. Sophia, set up a time to meet. You don't have to do that alone. I can come with you. I know, but I think this is something I need to do by myself. She managed a small smile. Don't worry, I'm not running. I'm just facing things I should have faced a long time ago. Okay, but after you meet with Sophia, maybe we could talk about what comes next. For you, I mean, you need a job, a purpose, something that isn't cleaning kitchens or hiding. What did you have in mind? Luca leaned back, wincing slightly at the pull on his shoulder. I run multiple businesses, most of them legitimate. Real estate, restaurants, import-export. I need someone I trust to help manage the cleaner side of things. Someone who's good with details, who doesn't ask for more than they've earned. Emily raised an eyebrow. You want me to work for you? With me. There's a difference. He held up a hand before she could protest. And before you say this is charity or pity, it's not. You're smart, you're observant, and you kept your head during a crisis most people would have crumbled in. Those are valuable skills. I'm offering you a real job with real responsibilities. You can say no, but don't say no because you think you don't deserve it. Emily was quiet, considering. A month ago, the idea of working legitimately for Luca Moretti would have seemed insane. But he was right. She needed something to do, some way to build a life that wasn't about running or hiding. What about the other side, she asked. The not-so-legitimate businesses? You stay completely separate from that. I won't lie. That world exists, and I'm part of it. But you don't have to be. I can keep those walls up. Can you? Really? I've kept worse secrets. His expression turned serious. Emily, I'm giving you a choice here. Work with me or don't. Stay here or find your own place. Be with me or walk away. Whatever you choose, I'll make sure you're protected and provided for. No strings, no obligations, just honest options. The fact that he meant it made the decision easier. I'll take the job, Emily said, but I'm getting my own apartment. Staying here feels too much like I'm still hiding, just in a nicer room. Fair enough, I'll have someone help you find a place. And the other thing, the being with you part, I want to take that slow. Figure out what that looks like when we're not running from someone trying to kill us. Also fair. Luca's mouth curved into a small smile. Though, for the record, I'm an excellent cook and have been told I'm decent company when I'm not bleeding. Emily laughed despite herself. I'll keep that in mind. 2 weeks later, Emily met Sophia Ruiz at a quiet coffee shop in a neighborhood neither of them had any connection to. Neutral ground, as Sophia had suggested on the phone. Emily arrived early, nervous energy making her order tea she didn't drink. When Sophia walked in, Emily recognized her immediately from the photo. Older now, tired, but with the same dark hair pulled back, the same determined set to her jaw. They sat across from each other, both unsure how to start. Thank you for coming, Sophia said finally. I know this can't be easy. Neither can this for you. I'm the reason you're having to relive everything. No, Victor's the reason. You're just the messenger. Sophia wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. I need you to tell me everything you remember, everything about that night. The police won't tell me anything, and I need to know. So Emily told her. All of it. The alley, the sounds, the way Victor had hit Danny over and over until he stopped moving. The moment their eyes had met and Emily had known she had to run. The 3 years of hiding and guilt and wondering if she should have done something different. I'm sorry, Emily said when she finished, her voice rough. I'm sorry I didn't come forward sooner. I'm sorry I let you believe Danny had abandoned you. Sophia reached across the table, took Emily's hand. You were scared. You did what you had to do to survive. I understand that. And you're here now. You gave me the truth when you could have stayed hidden. That takes courage. It doesn't feel courageous. It feels overdue. Maybe, but you're here anyway. Sophia's grip tightened. The man who helped you, Luca Moretti, he made sure Raphael's people told me everything, made sure we were taken care of. Are you two together? Emily hesitated. It's complicated. Everything worth having usually is. As a sad smile crossed Sophia's face. Danny used to say that. Life's complicated, but that doesn't mean we stop trying. They talked for another hour. About Danny, about Sophia's son, who was almost 4 now, and asking questions about his father. About the future Sophia was trying to build from the pieces of her broken past. When they finally said goodbye, Sophia hugged Emily tight. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything, for being brave when it mattered." Emily walked back to her car feeling lighter than she had in years. The guilt wasn't gone. It probably never would be completely. But it was manageable now, survivable. Her phone rang as she started the engine. Luca. "How'd it go?" he asked. "Better than I expected. Hard, but good." Emily pulled out of the parking lot. "I'm heading back now." "Actually, can you meet me somewhere first? There's something I want to show you." He gave her an address across town. Emily plugged it into her GPS and drove, curious. The building turned out to be a renovated warehouse converted into loft apartments. Modern, clean, the kind of place young professionals aspired to live. Luca waited outside, looking better than he had since the shooting, color back in his face, arm out of the sling though he still favored his good shoulder. "What is this?" Emily asked, climbing out of her car. "You said you wanted your own place. I found some options." He gestured to the building. "This one just came available. Top floor, 2-bedroom, good security. Thought you might want to see it." They rode the elevator up in silence. The apartment was beautiful. Exposed brick, tall windows overlooking the city, an actual kitchen instead of a kitchenette. Emily walked through it slowly, touching walls, imagining furniture, picturing a life lived in these rooms. "What do you think?" Luca asked from the doorway. "I think it's perfect. I also think I can't afford it. The rent's reasonable, and your salary from working with me will more than cover it." Emily turned to face him. "You're not subsidizing this, are you? I'm paying you a fair wage for fair work. What you do with that money is your business." He moved into the apartment, stood by the windows. "But I'll admit, I like knowing you'd be here. Close enough to have dinner together, far enough that you have your own space. This feels too good to be true. Maybe you're due for something good." Emily joined him by the window. The city spread out below them, all lights and movement, life happening in millions of small moments. A month ago, she'd been invisible in all of it. Now she was standing in an apartment she might actually call home, next to a man who'd fought beside her instead of abandoning her. "I'll take it," she said. "Yeah?" "Yeah, but I'm paying my own rent. No special treatment." "Wouldn't dream of it." Luca's hand found hers. "Though I reserve the right to buy you dinner occasionally, and maybe crash on your couch when I'm in the neighborhood." "Pretty sure you're always in the neighborhood. You own half of it." "Fair point." They stood there watching the city until the sun started setting, painting everything gold and orange. Emily thought about the red dress hanging in her closet at the mansion, about the wedding that had started all of this. About being pulled from invisibility into something dangerous that had somehow become something real. "Hey," Luca said quietly. "You okay?" "I'm good. Actually good, not just surviving." She turned to look at him. "Thank you for everything, for protecting me, for believing me, for giving me a chance to stop running. Thank you for staying, for choosing this instead of disappearing the first chance you got." His thumb traced circles on her hand. "I meant what I said at the hospital. I want to see where this goes. No guarantees, just honest effort." "Same." He kissed her then, soft and careful, like they had all the time in the world to figure this out. And maybe they did. The immediate threat was gone, Victor was dead, Raphael had granted them neutrality. For the first time in years, the future wasn't just something to survive. It was something to build. When they finally pulled apart, Emily was smiling. "What?" Luca asked. "Nothing. Just thinking about how a month ago I was cleaning your kitchen and trying to be invisible. Now I'm standing in an apartment you helped me find, kissing you in the sunset like some ridiculous movie. Life's weird like that." "Yeah, but I think I'm okay with weird." They left the apartment as dusk settled over the city, making plans for Emily to move in, talking about furniture and schedules and all the mundane details that made up a life. It felt normal in a way Emily had forgotten existed. That night, back at the mansion, Emily packed up her few belongings from the staff quarters. The red dress came out of the closet, and she held it up one last time. Evidence of the night everything changed, of stepping into visibility and finding that maybe being seen wasn't the end of the world. She packed it carefully in a garment bag. Someday she might wear it again, might go to another event on Luca's arm, but this time it wouldn't be about hiding or pretending. It would be about choosing to show up, to be present, to live, instead of just surviving. A knock on her door interrupted her packing. "Come in," she called. Luca entered, looking amused. "Leaving already?" "Just organizing. I'll move into the new place next week once the lease is signed." "Need help?" "With one suitcase and a dress? I think I can manage." He sat on her bed, watching her pack. "You know, I never told you why I really asked you to that wedding." Emily paused. "You said I was different, honest. That's part of it. But the real reason?" He looked down at his hands. "I was tired. Tired of the performance, the politics, the constant calculation. Everyone in my life wants something from me. Even the people I trust most are there because of what I can do for them, not who I am. And I was supposed to be what, exactly? A break. A night of not having to perform. Someone who'd stand next to me and not expect anything in return." He looked up, met her eyes. "I didn't expect to actually like you, to care about what happened to you. I didn't expect any of this either. I thought I'd put on a dress, smile for a few hours, go back to being invisible. Instead, you walked into a nightmare. Instead, I walked into something real." Emily sat beside him. "I'm not going to lie and say I'm grateful Victor showed up at that wedding, but everything that came after, you protecting me, us figuring this out together, I wouldn't trade that. Even knowing what it cost, the danger, the fear, even then, because it brought me here, to a life I actually want instead of one I'm just enduring." Luca pulled her close, careful of his still healing shoulder. "I'm not good at this. Relationships, caring about people outside of business. I'm probably going to mess it up, but I've spent 3 years lying about who I am and running from my problems. I'm not exactly relationship material either. Then we'll mess it up together." "Sounds perfect." They sat there in her small room that had been her sanctuary and her prison, holding each other as the mansion settled around them. Tomorrow, Emily would start the process of moving into her own place, of building a life that was truly hers. She'd start working with Luca, learning the legitimate side of his business, finding her place in a world that no longer terrified her. But tonight, she just let herself be present, let herself feel safe in a way she hadn't in years. The next morning, Emily woke early and went downstairs to find Mrs. Castellano in the kitchen, already organizing the day's tasks. "Miss Carter," the housekeeper said, "can I get you breakfast?" "Actually, I was hoping to make breakfast. One last time in this kitchen." Mrs. Castellano's severe expression softened into something almost warm. "It's all yours." Emily cooked eggs and toast, made fresh coffee, and brought it to Luca's office where he was already working despite the early hour. "You're going to overdo it," she said, setting the plate in front of him. "Says the woman who broke into a storage unit in the middle of the night. That was different. That was survival. And this is my version of survival. Work keeps me sane." He took a bite of eggs, nodded appreciatively. "These are good. Maybe you should have been a chef instead of a housekeeper. Maybe I'll be a businesswoman instead, see how that goes. I think you'll be great at it." They ate breakfast together, talking about mundane things, weather, news, plans for the week, normal conversation between two people learning how to be together without crisis forcing their hand. Later that day, James and Tommy stopped by with contracts for Emily to sign. Employment paperwork making her official role in Moretti Enterprises legitimate and legal. She read through everything carefully, asked questions, made sure she understood what she was agreeing to. "You don't have to do this," Luca reminded her as she signed the final page. "There are other options. I want to. I want to build something instead of just surviving day to day." She handed the signed contracts back to James. "When do I start?" "Monday, if you're ready." "I'm ready." The week passed in a blur of activity. Emily moved into her new apartment with help from Luca and his men, filling the empty space with furniture and small decorations that made it feel like home. She set up her bedroom, arranged her small kitchen, hung curtains that let in light but maintained privacy. On her first night alone in the apartment, Emily stood by the window and looked out at the city. Somewhere out there, Sofia Ruiz was putting her son to bed, telling him stories about his father. Somewhere, Rafael Cortez was running his empire, one threat eliminated from his operation. Somewhere, people were living and dying and making choices that would ripple through countless lives. And here, Emily Carter was standing in her own apartment, starting her own life, no longer invisible. Her phone buzzed, a text from Luca. "Dinner tomorrow? I'll cook. Promise I'm better than I claimed." Emily smiled and typed back. "You're on. I'll bring wine." She set her phone down and looked around her apartment, her space, her sanctuary, her home. It wasn't perfect. The neighborhood had its rough edges, the walls were thin enough to hear her neighbors, and she was still learning how to sleep without waking every few hours checking for threats. But it was hers. Actually, hers. And for the first time in 3 years, Emily Carter wasn't planning her next escape route. She was planning her next dinner date, her first day at a new job, her future beyond just tomorrow. Monday morning arrived with surprising normalcy. Emily dressed in professional clothes she'd bought over the weekend. Nothing as dramatic as the red dress, but nice enough to feel confident. She drove to the office building that housed the legitimate side of Moretti Enterprises and took the elevator to the 5th floor where James was waiting to show her around. "Welcome aboard," he said, genuinely friendly now that she wasn't a crisis to manage. "Let me show you your office." It was small, but had a window, a real desk, a computer. Emily's name was already on the door. Emily Carter, Operations Manager. "Operations Manager?" she asked. "You'll be overseeing the restaurant division to start, making sure everything runs smoothly, handling problems before they become crises. Luca thinks you're good at that." Emily thought about the past month, about every impossible decision, every moment of terror transformed into action. Maybe Luca was right. Maybe crisis management was her actual skill set. "Okay," she said, "show me what I'm working with." The day flew by in meetings and briefings and stacks of paperwork that needed attention. By the time Emily looked up, it was after 6 and the office had mostly emptied out. She gathered her things, tired but satisfied, and headed for the elevator. Luca was waiting in the lobby. "How was day 1?" he asked, falling into step beside her. "Overwhelming but good. Your restaurant managers have a lot of opinions about everything." "Welcome to management. Everyone has opinions. Your job is deciding which ones matter." They walked out into the evening together, and Emily felt something settle in her chest. This was her life now. Real job, real apartment, real relationship. Or the beginning of one, anyway. "Still on for dinner?" Luca asked. "Absolutely, but I'm buying the wine. I want to contribute something." "Deal." They separated at their cars with a kiss that promised more later, and Emily drove to the wine shop thinking about how strange it was that normal life could feel this good after so long without it. That night, in Luca's apartment, she'd never actually been there before, Emily discovered he really could cook. They ate pasta he'd made from scratch and drank the wine she'd brought, talking about work and nothing and everything. "I talked to Sophia again," Emily said over dessert. "She wants to set up a scholarship fund in Danny's name for kids in their neighborhood who want to go to college." "That's a good idea. Let me know if she needs help setting it up." "You do that?" "Danny died because of people in my world. The least I can do is help his family honor his memory." Emily reached across the table, took his hand. "You're a good man, Luca Moretti, even if you don't believe it." "I'm a practical man. There's a difference." "No, you chose to protect me when abandoning me would have been easier. You chose to help Sophia even though you didn't have to. Those are choices good people make." Luca was quiet for a moment. "Maybe I'm trying to be better than I was. You make that seem possible." "Same." They cleaned up dinner together, washing dishes side by side like this was routine, like they'd been doing this for years instead of weeks. Afterward, they sat on his balcony watching the city lights, talking about everything and nothing until Emily's eyes started drooping. "Stay," Luca said quietly. "It's late. You can take the guest room." "Or I could not take the guest room." He looked at her, something vulnerable in his expression. "You sure?" "I'm sure. We've survived assassination attempts and gang wars together. I think we can handle one night in the same bed." So Emily stayed, and it was comfortable and awkward and perfect in the way new relationships are when you're both trying to figure out where you fit. They fell asleep tangled together, and for the first time in years, Emily slept through the night without nightmares. The weeks that followed fell into a rhythm. Emily worked during the day, learning the business, building relationships with the restaurant managers, proving she belonged in this role. Evenings were split between her apartment and Luca's, cooking together, watching movies, learning each other's habits and quirks. It wasn't always smooth. Emily had panic attacks sometimes, triggered by unexpected sounds or strangers who reminded her of Victor. Luca had his own demons, nightmares from his past, moments when the violence of his world bled through into their time together. But they worked through it. They talked instead of hiding. They chose honesty even when it was uncomfortable. 2 months after Victor's death, Emily met with Sophia and helped her set up the scholarship fund. They held a small ceremony at Danny's son's preschool, announcing the first recipient. Sophia cried, and Emily cried with her, and it felt like closure even though the grief would probably never fully disappear. 3 months in, Luca took Emily to meet his brother Marco and his wife Christina. They had dinner at an expensive restaurant, and Christina pulled Emily aside afterward. "I'm glad he found you," Christina said. "Luca's different around you, lighter, like he's not carrying the whole world on his shoulders. He does that anyway. I just help him put it down sometimes. That's exactly what he needs." 6 months after the wedding that changed everything, Emily stood in her apartment getting ready for another event. This one, a charity gala Luca's company was sponsoring. The red dress came out of her closet, and Emily slipped into it again. This time, when she looked in the mirror, she didn't see an imposter. She saw herself. Emily Carter, operations manager, girlfriend of Luca Moretti, survivor of impossible odds. Someone who'd stopped running and started building. Luca picked her up at 8, looking devastatingly handsome in his tuxedo. "You wore the dress," he said, something warm in his eyes. "Seemed appropriate, full circle and all that. Ready to face another room full of wealthy people judging you? Ready to face them standing next to you, that's different." They drove to the gala together, hand in hand, and this time when Emily walked into a ballroom on Luca's arm, she held her head high. People stared, people whispered, but Emily didn't care. She wasn't invisible anymore. She was present. She was real. She was living instead of hiding. Vanessa Delacroix approached them during cocktail hour, looking shocked to see Emily still around. "You're persistent," Vanessa said, her smile sharp. "Most of Luca's girlfriends don't last 6 weeks." "I'm not most girlfriends," Emily replied calmly. "Nice to see you again, Vanessa." She walked away before Vanessa could respond, and she heard Luca laugh quietly beside her. "That was perfect," he said. "I'm learning from the best." They danced that night, a real dance, not the performance from the wedding. Emily let herself relax into it, let herself enjoy the moment without waiting for disaster. "I love you," Luca said quietly as they swayed to the music. "I probably should have said that sooner, but I'm saying it now. I love you, Emily Carter." Emily's heart stuttered. She looked up at him, saw the truth of it in his eyes. "I love you too," she said. "Even though you're terrible at following doctor's orders, and you work too much, and you're definitely going to give me gray hair with the dangerous things you do. Fair criticisms, all of them. I love you anyway." He kissed her there on the dance floor, in front of everyone, claiming her as publicly as she was claiming him, and Emily kissed him back, not caring who saw, not worried about judgment or whispers. She'd spent 3 years being invisible. Now she was choosing to be seen. The gala ended late. They drove back to Luca's apartment. It had become more home to her than her own place lately, though she kept the apartment because having her own space mattered, and collapsed on his couch, tired but happy. "Thank you," Emily said, curled against his side. "For what?" "For choosing me that night. For asking a scared housemaid to a wedding instead of any of 100 more logical choices. Best illogical choice I ever made. Same." They sat in comfortable silence, and Emily thought about the journey that had brought them here. From that alley 3 years ago, through cities and fear and endless running, to a wedding that should have been simple, to violence and danger, and finally to this, safety and love and a future she actually wanted. "Hey," Luca said, pulling her from her thoughts. "Where'd you go?" "Just thinking about how everything that happened led here. About how Victor showing up at that wedding was the worst and best thing that could have happened. I wouldn't go that far." "No, think about it. If he hadn't shown up, I would have gone back to cleaning kitchens. We would have gone our separate ways after that night. I'd still be running, still hiding, still surviving instead of living. You'd also still have your anonymity, your safety. I have safety now, real safety, not just hiding, and I have you. That's worth everything it cost. Emily turned to look at him fully. I'm not saying I'm grateful Victor tried to kill us, but I'm grateful for what we built from surviving it. Luca pulled her closer. Me too. They fell asleep on the couch that night, tangled together, and Emily dreamed of red dresses and new beginnings and futures that didn't require escape plans. A year after the wedding, Emily and Luca stood on his balcony watching the sunset over the city. She'd been promoted to senior operations manager, overseeing not just restaurants, but the real estate division too. Her apartment sat mostly empty now. She'd essentially moved into Luca's place without ever making it official. I've been thinking, Luca said, arms wrapped around her from behind, about making this permanent. Emily's heart skipped. Making what permanent? Us. This. I want you to officially move in. Stop pretending you live somewhere else when you spend every night here anyway. That's very romantic, Emily teased. Stop pretending and move in. I'm working up to the romantic part. He turned her to face him. I love you. I love coming home to you every night. I love that my apartment smells like your perfume and your terrible coffee. I love who I am when I'm with you. Move in with me. For real this time. Emily looked at him. This complicated, dangerous, wonderful man who'd chosen to protect her when abandoning her would have been easier. Who'd fought beside her and kissed her and loved her through all of it. Okay, she said. Yes, I'll move in with you. Really? Really, though we're getting a better coffee maker. Mine isn't terrible. Yours is just expensive and pretentious. Luca laughed and kissed her, and Emily kissed him back, tasting their future in that moment. That night they made plans. What furniture to keep, what to donate, how to merge two lives into one shared space. It felt monumental and ordinary all at once. Later, lying in bed with Luca asleep beside her, Emily thought about the woman she'd been a year ago. Terrified, alone, convinced she'd die in some anonymous place with no one to mourn her. That woman would never have believed this future was possible. But here Emily was, alive, in love, building a life instead of just surviving one. She thought about Danny Ruiz and the family he'd left behind, about Victor Hale dead on a dock, about every choice and consequence that had brought her to this moment. And she thought about the red dress hanging in the closet, a reminder of the night everything changed, the night she stepped out of invisibility and into a life worth living. Emily closed her eyes and let herself drift off to sleep, safe in the knowledge that tomorrow wasn't something to survive. It was something to wake up for. Outside, the city breathed and moved and lived, full of people making choices that would ripple through countless lives. Some good, some bad, all of them human. And in a quiet apartment overlooking it all, Emily Carter slept without nightmares, finally free of the past that had chased her for so long. The monsters were gone. The future was hers. And this time, she was ready for it.